Yes, indeed. That's what I'm talking about. Welcome, everybody. Hello, Arvanauts. Welcome all to a Tuesday stream. It is January 16th. It is 12:15 p.m. Eastern, and I hope everyone is looking forward to some awesome times and some great D&D moments with Adventures in Middle-earth, Wilderland Adventures, Day 14, Episode 3, Kinstrife and Dark Tidings. The Dark Tidening. I don't know. I was trying to think of other things that I could put on there. Sponsored, of course, officially by Cubicle 7. And first of all, my thanks and always salutations and gratitude to the wonderful people at Cubicle 7. Thank you, Cubicle 7, for sponsoring our campaign. Before I talk more about this adventure that we're about to get into, I want to welcome everybody in, and I want to remind you all about ways to support the stream. If you haven't done so, hello, Nonstop, Dragonspear, and Snup-O-Matic. Welcome, guys. If you haven't already done so, please make sure to follow the channel. Please make sure to tweet out the stream with exclamation point CTT. Please make sure to check out the YouTube channel with past broadcasts of this adventure and others. Exclamation point ArvTube will get you there. Exclamation point Steam Group will get you over to the Steam Group. That's a good point, Dragon, and I agree with you. Steam Group, where you can hang out with the Arvanauts in between streams. Same thing if you play with us and hang out at Discord, exclamation point Discord, to get over to our Discord channel, which is growing rapidly. Of course, if you haven't already done so, please make sure to check out I think we missed a T in there, I believe is what happened. Please make sure as well to check out the ways that you can financially support the channel. Firstly, exclamation point ArvShop. And I have actually made recently a couple of purchases from my own shop, because I have some shirts going out to the Infinity and Beyond crew. If you want to see more of that Dungeons & Dragons campaign, you will see more of that this coming weekend on Saturday. And you'll also have a chance to see, hopefully, a few people wearing those shirts if they arrive there in time, I hope. But in any case, that is one way to support the stream, is by checking out the shop. Also, of course, the Patreon with exclamation point ArvTreon, currently sitting at 400. I have updated. It is completely up to date, the inspiration list. So if you want to be able to inspire party members, you can do so in this campaign. And remember, the way to do that is exclamation point inspire space the name of the person / character that you're wanting to inspire. Please do that if you want to inspire one of the players, but I'll talk more about that when the moments get there. Also, you can get a lot of other individual things for you, individual things for the channel, and so on. So that's all with exclamation point ArvTreon. And then last but certainly not least, of course, that purple sub button right above the window. We're almost up to 40 subs, and I do want to say that, first of all, I'm really grateful to all the new subs. You get to use those awesome gold get hyped emotes. But in addition to that, starting in February, $9.99 patrons are also going to be able to get the benefit of inspiring the players once as well. So just like the $10 patrons get that ability, the $9.99 subs will get the ability to inspire players as well once for that sub during the course of a month. So that's going to be starting in February. So definitely good things for you and for the channel as always. Today we are continuing with Adventures in Middle-earth, and I'll introduce the players to you in just 1 minute. At 4 p.m. Eastern, I will be over at GOG continuing the Storm King's Thunder campaign with the D&D with GOG team, Pyron J, Darksaber 2K, and Screaming Joypad. So that's really exciting. I am looking forward to that. And on the weekend, on Friday, I believe I've got Pool of Radiance queued up, if I'm not mistaken, for Friday, which should be fun. And then Saturday, Infinity and Beyond, the flagship D&D campaign here, will continue. I also want to mention, and Brahms is right, we are going to have more announcements and things like that with official dates and all that stuff coming up. But I do want to mention that, yes, the game Esper Genesis, which is a 5th edition based space game, basically a space opera / science fiction Star Wars meets Mass Effect type game, that is going to be happening starting in February as well, and I'll have dates for that, and I'll make lots of announcements, also announcements about the players, just about all of whom I now have confirmed. So I'm looking forward to that. That is officially sponsored by Alligator Alley Entertainment, which is the company behind Esper Genesis. We are the official channel for those campaigns, and I'm very excited about that, starting in February. So lots of good stuff coming up all over the place, announcements that I want to be able to make, and I can't quite yet, but good stuff. But for today, it is Adventures in Middle-earth, Wilderland Adventures, and so I'm going to unmute myself so the fine people there know that we're just about ready to go. And then I'm going to unmute them, and then I'm going to move over, dun, 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 there we go, to my full crew, which is all there except for, although I see that the webcams are messed up because we had people leave and come back. I will fix those. Those do not adjust your TV sets. Those are not actually all the right people, but they will be in just a moment. For example, this is not the river. That is that person. And this is not Robar Stanton. That's Inga. And let's see. Trent is in the right place. There we go. Now everybody's in the right place where they're supposed to be. And now, officially, we can announce everyone the way they're supposed to be. Starting with the gentleman right below me, who should need no introduction, but I will do it anyway. And that is, of course, the wonderful Trendane Sparks, who's sitting right below me. Hello, Tren. How are you? How are how are things on your end of the woods, sir? Is your house any better now? Is it have the last of the, or no?
So,
Uh-oh.
the guys, after they put the cement back in the kitchen and sealed up that hole, I thought we were done. But apparently, the part that they had done before that, where we were worried they were going to have to trench out the entire front yard, they had put in a new clean out spot, opening right in the middle of the sidewalk in the front of the house, like maybe 3 or 4 inches off the front porch.
Okay.
Where the sidewalk goes out to the driveway.
Okay.
And so it was just that, and it was just dirt all around it because they had removed that section of the walkway.
Okay.
So they finally came back to put that back in. We didn't know when they were going to do that. They just showed up one morning. It's like, I hear doors closing, and I'm like laying there asleep. I'm like, that sounds close. And so I sit up and I look out the window and I'm like, oh, what are the plumbers doing back here? And so I get up and I get dressed real fast and I go over and I open the door and they're like, oh, good morning. I'm like, yeah. What are you doing here? And they're like, oh, we're going to pour the concrete for this section. I'm like, oh, do you need anything from me? And they're like, no, we're good. I'm like,
go back to sleep. We're fine.
No, that was impossible at that point.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So it's like, so I go back to my room and I get online and I'm checking email and stuff and whatnot. And as my housemate was saying when we came back from dinner last night, they did a rather shoddy job on the lines, the edges of the thing. And there's like pieces of rebar that are stuck in the thing to keep the forms in place.
Yeah. And
Will's like, the Will that I live with, not you, Will. It's like,
Will, who moonlights as a plumber in California.
That's right.
He's like, so did they say when we're supposed to take the rebar out? And I'm like, no. It's just whenever I guess we think it's done. And then the cement in the kitchen has this weird white looking fuzzy stuff kind of coming out of it at certain spots. And I'm like, what is this? And he's like, I don't know. I'm like,
oh God.
Why did the plumbers put white stuff? What? And so apparently he was asking around on the internet and either it's salt.
Okay.
Or it's something,
or it's death mold. Is that
something? It's all, but it's fluffy and white, and it looks too adorable to be deadly.
It looks too adorable. Yeah, great. Fortunately, they happen to go to the house of the one person who's just be like, as a furry, I find this totally reasonable and
fluffy
acceptable.
White stuff cannot be deadly. Look at
evil.
Snow. Snow can't kill people.
Jesus. Well, dude, I hope for things to actually right now. This is the plumber calling me to be like, shut up, they're getting too close. Hold on a second, I'm sorry. Well, actually, what I'll do is I will say, tell us who you are playing as I take this really important call for some reason.
Okay, tell you what, you take your call, I will deal with the thing. Don't forget to mute yourself. So I am playing Tawny Bear, the Beorn, pacifist person who is so deathly in love with Dark Dwarf, and he doesn't want to fight anymore. He's done too much of it in his life, and he wants to turn over a new leaf, very passively, gently turn over a new leaf.
Passively turn over a new leaf.
Yeah, don't want to be aggressive about it.
Mm-hmm.
Hurling a racket into the crowd.
No, we can't have that.
And so I will pass it on as gravity wills to Will.
Outstanding.
Yes.
And thank you as always, Trent. Looking forward to today. Moving right on down the line, we have our good friend Will from the inimitable Encounter Roleplay, the one that I told him earlier today he should be referring to as an empire, as a media empire. I think that's important. Drop this deity sex icon. Really what you need is just to be a media empire. Emperor. That's really...
Emperor.
The tycoon.
Emperor, the tycoon, right. That's what you need most of all. And then you need to wear a jetpack so you can be an eccentric. Like, what was his...
Yes.
What's his name? Oh, God. Who's the guy, the rocket...
The Rocketeer?
Yeah, who's the big, like, tycoon brilliant guy that I can't remember, that was played by DiCaprio, and... it was the rocket guy.
Gatsby?
No, what was his actual name, though? But, like, it wasn't Gatsby, though. It was the rocket guy. Never mind. I'll figure this out.
John.
Yeah, see, that's what I try not to remember. God damn it. Anyway, hi Will. How are you? How's life on your side of the pond, sir?
I'm good. I'm battling away with my internet today until I get my Ethernet installed tomorrow. So I might become a robot at various parts. Don't worry, I haven't been taken over by the Borg. It's just my Wi-Fi is really shitty tonight. So gonna be fighting against that while I try and play Robar Staunton, the stauntest of mans, which is now a word. And he's the Dunedain Ranger of the group, and he's pretty angry, and he's looking to hunt down this guy who has been murdering everyone all the time because that is rude.
Yep, that just can't be allowed.
Can't be allowed. This guy hates dogs.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's the real reason. I just found his name. Yeah, it's Howard Hughes. It's the Aviator. And I was getting the Aviator confused with the Rocketeer, which is also good in its own way. Yeah, no, it was Howard Hughes, that guy. Anyway, so yes, I'm looking forward to seeing how Robar handles the further work with CSI. For some reason, all of my D&D campaigns of late have had this CSI thing going. Like one of my campaigns, they're looking for a fugitive. You guys are also looking for a fugitive. The previous one that Trendane plays in, they managed to track down one of their people who had been kidnapped. Is all like, I don't know, for some reason there's a thematic quality of Law and Order that's going on. But I'm looking forward to seeing how Will handles things. And you guys should be following Will at Encounter Roleplay if you aren't already, because he runs a lot of really awesome D&D games over there. And is sponsored by, who's your sponsor? Go ahead and
my sponsor is dndice.co.uk.
D and Dice. There you go. Ding. You should have a little like ding every time you hit that note. Yes, cool stuff, man. Thank you for being here. Moving right along down the line, we have, of course, the inimitable Terry Tunes.
Hello.
Hello, Terry. How are you? Terry has been swimming, so everyone should say that Terry is now an official world-class swimmer. So I think that's
just a tiny overstatement there. No, like I mean, as most of you guys know, is that I kind of injured my arm from drawings too much, and my doctor said I have to go swimming, and now I finally went swimming for the first time yesterday, and now everything hurts and I want to die. No.
Be patient.
No, it's not that bad. Last night was awful. I had to take painkillers and shit. Oh my god, it was really bad. I'm not dying or anything. No. I guess I have to tell you who I'm playing. I am playing Inge, daughter of Ida. She is a dwarven mason from the people of Erebor, and she also has a pony named Lilleman. Because
yes,
ponies
absolutely.
are great.
I clearly at some point I'm going to have to do some spin-off adventure just with Lilleman and Stone, and like just basically have, and then,
It's like how they did a cartoon spin-off of like the Superman animated show.
Yep.
Animated series with Ace. Not Ace, no, Ace what Batman's dog. With Crypto.
Yeah, Superman's dog.
I'm so sorry.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right. I figure like that'll bring in a huge demographic. That'll be the next stage in. Always a pleasure to have Terry with us. Thank you, Terry. And I'm glad to hear that the arm is gradually on the mend, swimming-wise or otherwise. Moving right on down the line, we have last but certainly not least, of course, Amal, who is with us, who's all the way now to the bottom of your screen. Hello, Amal. How are you?
I am fantastic. Thank you. How are you?
I am doing well, thank you. So how has life been north of the border? Although you're going to be coming down not as far as my way, but you'll be coming down into our neck of the woods soon, right?
Yes. On Thursday, I'm going to go to, Borders Willing and Weather Willing and everything, to Confusion in Novi, Michigan, which is near Detroit. It's a really, really great local con that I super love. It's my third time going, and the last 2 times have just been this it's just this tremendously relaxing con, which is not a metric that I think a lot of people use when talking about conventions, but it's just so great, and I highly recommend it if you're in the Detroit area, or it's within a couple hours drive of you. Definitely go check it out. I'm going to be on a few panels, and I'm also going to read with Max Gladstone from our upcoming co-written novella. It's our
Nice.
Oh God, is Will frozen in a? What is happening
That
there?
is quite a freeze. Wow.
That's amazing.
That is a great freeze. Everyone needs to clip
Wow.
that already.
That's
He said new empire, like the head of the empire. Good God. Anyway, he's really reacting to your reading, apparently.
And that's a beautiful non-freeze or unfreeze.
That's the other kind of
this is
freeze.
another one. This is it's good. You know when your parents would tell you that don't make that face, it'll freeze that way.
Booyah, yeah, exactly.
They
if
were
only they
pretty-
could
Oh, different expression.
Yeah.
But sorry, go on,
yeah.
Amal. So you're going to be reading with Max Gladstone, you said.
I'm going to read with Max Gladstone Saturday at 3:00. And so if you're going to be at the convention, go check us out. We're going to read from our epistolary spy versus spy novella across time and space. It's called "This Is How You Lose the Time War," and I am very, very excited for it to be a thing in the world, which is still a ways off, but that's all the more reason to come and hear us reading from it. So that's happening this weekend. The con in general is really cool. I'm going to host a Steven Universe sing-along on Friday night. And
I want to go.
you like Steven Universe? Isn't it the best?
Yes, it is.
Look, I have a friend sent me this adorable pencil case.
Aww.
And in it I have pens that are also gem colored and stuff. Anyways.
So cute. I need to make a gem sona for you at some point.
That'd be really good.
I made gem sonas for 99% of my D&D characters, so.
Yes, I would like to be either labradorite or turquoise.
Okay, we can do that.
That would be very good. Anyways.
Well, once my arm is better, obviously, but yeah.
Of course.
And
you please take good care of that arm.
Yeah. I try.
But yeah, so Steven Universe sing along, that's going to happen. All the more reason to go to Confusion in Novi, Michigan. So the Novi Sheraton. So yeah, so that's happening this weekend. I'm super excited about that. And other things. I've got I don't know if anyone here is familiar with Molly Crabapple. She's this absolutely amazing artist whose work I've loved for years, and she has illustrated a poem of mine that's going to be up on Fireside magazine in the next couple of days. And it's so maybe look out for that. It's really cool. And it's the Fireside magazine, which I cannot recommend enough because it's brilliant, is run by some really excellent people who have really cool ideas about making text on the internet not just a representation of the page. So there's some really neat interactive-y stuff with how the images play with the text, and it's really cool, and I'm excited about it going up too. So yeah, that's what's up with me, I think. And I am playing the River, who is of the woodman of Rosrebel. I've decided to put a R in there.
Nice.
Rein. So she and her faithful hound Stone are part of this party, and are basically just looking to do good deeds worthy of song and memory in the world. She is a warden.
Yeah, awesome stuff, and I'm looking forward to seeing how she continues to handle this investigation, since wardens have to do this thing from time to time. Yeah, I should mention very quickly. Dragonspear actually lives, as he said, about 25 minutes from that place. So if you get a chance, Dragon, you should swing by that conference, because I was supposed to go to that last year and I just couldn't do it, and this year I couldn't either because I was way too busy with stuff travel wise. But you should stop by, and you should check out Amal's reading first of all. And then you need to introduce yourself as your Twitch name so that everyone, because that still happens to me where people are like, I'm Joe. I'm like, Joe. Oh, and they're like, I'm Derp the Bugbear. I'm like, oh yeah, sure. Obviously I know who you are. So, but anyway, there is actually a Derp the Bugbear, and I swear to God that happened where I just stared at the guy blankly until he gave me his Twitch name. I'm like, oh yes. Anyway, but you should definitely check Amal's work off. No, I mean, it's just Confusion is the one con that's in that area that I would go to. Otherwise, I haven't been able to. There's not really a con out that general area, except for like Gen Con and Columbus that are Midwest-ish. So that's a little bit, a little bit different.
There's also PenguaCon is in Detroit, isn't it?
Is it? I don't know. I know very little about PenguaCon.
Actually, I should say because I also forgot that this happened in the last week. I'm going to be a guest at PenguaCon this year.
Oh, nice.
Which is a surprise to me. Basically, what they did was they invited the Writing Excuses podcast.
Yep.
And they invited the Writing Excuses core team plus the guest hosts, and I'm a guest host this year. So I'm really excited about PenguaCon because it's a con that is about like IT and genre stuff. So my husband gets to go and have fun with the IT stuff as well as me getting to go and have fun with the genre stuff. So I'm looking forward to that.
Nice. Then Dragon should absolutely be there to that one. So that's cool. I'm gonna I've heard about it, but I just don't know much about it. I haven't had a chance to check into it. So hi Fender, what's up, man? Rare snow day in Texas. Wow. I am glad that I'm glad that you're with us with your snow day in Texas. Yeah, Dragon, you heard IT. PenguaCon, apparently, which is that right? Is that like downtown Detroit?
Let me just quickly check. PenguaCon. Where is it? It says Southeast Michigan. Is that, let's see. That's what the Wikipedia entry says. Why am I looking this up?
Yeah.
My computer is slow.
Yeah, go ahead and look it up though, Dragon. But I don't know. I'm curious because anyway.
The Southfield Weston Hotel, Michigan. So presumably that means not downtown Detroit because they would have said so otherwise.
Right, you would think so.
You would think, yeah.
Yeah.
You would think so. By the way, one quick note for everyone. I know the pictures are messed up. I didn't want to correct all of them because the minute I do that, literally, I swear to God, the minute that happens, Will come back in. I'll have to do them all again. So please bear with me while we go there. So Austin. Oh, okay, cool. Cool, Fender.
Since your computer is slow, go ahead and start jumping into Roll20 now.
Oh, yes. Oh,
yeah,
I forgot.
A good point.
Sorry. I had the splash page open, but not the, yes, thank you.
But anyway, yes, so you should check out and get a chance to listen to Amal read her work, which is excellent, as I've said many times on here. But one note I want to make actually quickly, because two things came to mind as she was talking, and then we're going to launch into the adventure. I'm delaying slightly because I was hoping to wait until we got Will back in, but it's okay either way. The first note is I actually spoke to the Science Fiction Association of Bergen County, which has been around for 3 decades, and which has had Fran Wild most recently, and Raj Khanna and Saladin Ahmed has spoken there, Keith DeCandido, a bunch of other folks in the New York or greater New York area, and they invited me to speak last Saturday, so I had a chance to go in, talk to them, and I actually streamed it live on my channel here, and it was great. It was a good turnout. I think we had like 35 people, something like that there, who were all asking some interesting questions, and it was longer than I expected, because I gave this talk, it was like 2.5 total hours, like an hour and a half and then a break and then another hour, and everyone was like chatting with each other, so that was cool. But I wanted to give them a shout out because I very much felt welcome, and I appreciated people stopping by, and some people bought some books and stuff like that, so thank you to them. Also, I'm going to be at Farpoint in a few weeks, which is in Baltimore, and I'm going to be there on panels, and I'm also going to be competing in a short story contest that they have there, which is kind of a neat idea. I'm probably going to be drafting some of that short story this coming Friday during a creative writing stream during the day. So if you want to check that, you can definitely do that, and we'll see whether or not how successful we can be in putting together a story. So a stand-up routine, totally unexpected. That's funny, Dragon. Yeah. It was funny too, because I got there and I had my whenever I dress for conventions, as Amal knows since she's seen me at these, I actually have the vest, the tie, the pocket watch, the whole thing. It's an old debate habit. And so I got in there, and like the guy comes up with this like ratty Syracuse sweatshirt, and he's like, oh, hi. And I'm like, I'm a little overdressed, aren't I? He's like, well, it's, and so I ended up like taking off my tie and trying to but there's only so much you can't really rat up a shirt without actually damaging it, which I'm not going to do. So it ended up working out fine, but I was just kind of like, okay, a little bit not quite the university professor look. I should have done something else. Anyway, but it was good times. Okay, enough of that nonsense. Let us get into stuff when Will gets here. Hopefully he will get here right after I'm done with the summary. These folks have been with us for now. It's hard to believe this is day 14. So this is our 14th session so far of Adventures in Middle-earth. And these folks are in the process right now of exploring a murder, or at least trying to track down the person who was responsible for it. But they didn't know about the murder per se until they got to this particular village.
Will did it. That's why he's not here.
Yeah, exactly right. Will's like, I've got to get out now. Yeah. So these
They'll
folks
never catch me alive.
these folks were after their last adventure of rescuing Brandybuck, were getting some long deserved rest. Tawny Bear and the River hanging out, River training her dog, Tawny Bear baking his twice baked honey cakes and so forth, while Robar and Inga went to track down some information about Robar's past and about his ancestral home. While that was happening, though, they ended up discovering the corpses of several Bjornings, and one of them in particular, Merovich, who was essentially Bjorn, the leader of this people, of course, Bjorn's essentially right-hand man when it came to matters of justice. His job is to go to various villages and places in the region and to bring back those who need judgment to Bjorn. He had done that in this case, bringing somebody back to them, but when he got back to the area, apparently, they were ambushed, apparently by orcs, although it's not clear entirely, and a lot of them were killed, and the fugitive they brought with them had escaped. And so after paying respects to Merovich, the party then followed his track downwards. They discovered some bandits who tried to attack them and realized to their cost what a terrible thing that was. River found out to her surprise that it was actually part of a splinter group that had left the Woodman sometime previous to this, a number of years before actually, and was troubled by that news. And they continued on to, after following some clues, to the small village of Stonyford, which used to be much larger, built on a much larger foundation, almost a fortress town with a watchtower above it, which is long since ruined and fallen into decay. And they ended up meeting three figures there. Heartwolf was the elderly figure who was sort of a kind of a village elder, I guess might be the way that you would describe him. Ava, who is the leader, the current headmistress of the village, and Williford, a warrior who was sort of the lead warrior in charge of security for that town, so to speak. They, after managing to convince the party of, or the party managing to convince them of their good intentions, allowed them to go to the home of one Odoric and discovered information about him. They discovered that Odoric had been found supposedly with Brunhilde, the wife of somebody else, and Odoric had ended up struggling with Brunhilde's Brunhilde's husband, Rathvik, and ended up killing him. And so the village had fallen upon him, tied him up, and then given him to Merovich and sent him off, whereupon they thought that would be the end of the story, until, as it turns out, of course, Odoric has since escaped. And so now the party has got to try to track down more information about what happened that night, because all they know is that Odoric was accused of this crime and, was being sent for judgment about it, but they don't actually know the actual series of events that led to this death. And, of course, they need to find out where Odoric might have gone after coming back here and why he would have come back here in the first place. And so that is where we pick up with the party at this point 4 as well. And so that's going to be the deal with that. So we're still waiting for Will, but I guess in the meantime, I'm going to do this anyway, because I always do. I will recapture the windows, and then that will summon, like a magic spell, Will to return. So that's what we'll do.
Maybe he's just waiting for that. He's watching the stream actually.
No, I
Just
mean, I
waiting
have
for
no
you
doubt
to
of it.
rearrange them, and then he rejoins.
Yeah, I imagine that's exactly what's going to happen. It's going to be typical, and that's fine, because that's the way things go. So I will leave it to the three of you to begin here, telling me what you guys would like to do. So you're actually, if you recall, actually sitting in the house right now and trying to decide where you folks are going to go next. Well, those two were. You were outside with Lillimon, I beg your pardon, and you actually just had Heartwolf come up to you
I
and
do
make some
remember
mysterious old man ravings, basically, before departing. So what would you folks like to do?
Right. So we're inside. So we had just been so the river and Tawny Bear had just been investigating the ashes in the fireplace and around it, I think.
Correct. That's right.
Right.
And it, I think, gathered the information that you wanted from that, which is that there were two. There were ashes initially from what must have been the original struggle, but then more ashes that have been swept over the top of that at a later date. Why and when, you don't know, but at a later date of some kind.
Okay. And the river will look to Tawny Bear and say, it's a pity that we have to preserve everything as it is here. Otherwise, I'd quite like to set about tidying the place if we're going to spend the night. Trying to make a lighthearted joke.
You know, when they brought us here, I thought they were bringing us somewhere to stay for the evening, to sleep. I didn't think they were bringing us to the scene of a crime. So I was slightly taken aback when we walked in. I was somewhat disheveled, I think.
Do you know, before arriving here, if you told me the same thing about your stay in Stonyford, I'd have made a lighthearted joke about Stonyford hospitality and just what you can expect from that. But I don't really feel up to that right now. I think I need to rethink that sort of humor in general. But it is the nighttime now. Presumably, we're not actually going to be talking to people tonight, right? Was
Presumably
it going to be
not. It's about 10 o'clock at night, roughly speaking, 10:15 or so. So it's the evening, and yeah, not unless you want to knock on people's doors and get up and tell me where you've been. You know.
Oh, right.
Bang, bang, bang. Open up in the name of the Lord's Council. Oh, wait, no. Wrong name.
Yeah,
Sorry.
exactly wrong.
Right.
I come from Bjorn.
So what I'm doing is that I finish feeding and unloading Lilleman, make sure that he is taken care for, and then since now Inge is not feeling down anymore after that really weird encounter with the old guy, she's actually going to rejoin the other guys indoors.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, sounds good. So you are back in with the two of you. So are you going to try to stay here? Are you going to try to camp outside? How do you want to handle things?
First of all, Inge turns to the other guys and oh god, what was the old man's name again? I forgot.
Heartwolf.
Heartwolf, that's right.
Yeah, Williford was the younger warrior guy.
What was the thing he whispered to me again? I forgot.
Look below where you hear it.
Look beneath what you hear.
Yep.
No, that's what he said to Tawny Bear. That's what he said to Tawny Bear, I think.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember now what as I consult my own notes. I mean, I remember what he said to Tawny Bear, but he said something else to you that was very similar. Inga. Yes, I believe it was look beneath and you will find it, I believe is what he actually said.
So, Inge turns to the other guys and so have you met this old man, Heartwolf is his name, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he came and spoke to me and was saying some really, really odd stuff. Like something about looking below something to find something. I'm really not sure.
He said something similar to me.
Any clue what he could mean by that?
None.
I mean,
we've been...
Does this house have a basement?
We were looking at the fireplace and saw that, it looked as if someone had spilled ashes over something, over ashes. I didn't want to disturb anything further, though, in case we want to talk to people first and then relate what they tell us to the state of the place. But it looks like it's already been tampered with a little bit. Don't know if you wanted to take a look as well, but I don't know if it has a basement.
Let's look around for a basement.
When
Yes.
you hear what?
Look beneath what you hear. I honestly don't know. I mean, perhaps all of this will look better in the morning. I think we should probably decide about whether we're going to sleep inside or outside. But
I prefer sleeping inside.
what is the weather like? No.
It is still a little bit chill. Remember that this is March, so we're still talking early spring.
Right.
But it's not the wind. It's not particularly windy. Relatively calm. There is the always the ever-present sound of the water, which rushes. And I think I had mentioned that it rushes considerably more on this side of the river, so like on this side of the ford, not on this side of the river, sorry, on this side of the ford, it rushes much faster, and so there's always the ever-present sound in the distance of the rushing water, but otherwise nothing unusual about the weather.
Interesting. I feel like we should make up our beds here and try to disturb things as little as possible and get as early a start as we can in the morning. And who knows what we'll hear in the night. Maybe something to do with all the, what was it, curses and ghosts that he was saying?
Curses and ghosts.
Apparently, yes.
Yeah. Perhaps we need to spend the night here in order to experience whatever it was that led Odoric to go mad, do what he did.
Lust?
Is he mad though?
Who can say? All I know is that everything that I've heard of that story put me in mind of other stories I've heard of people being ridden by dark spirits. But I don't know. That's, I mean, when we came into the village, I usually have a bit of a sense of these things, of knowing when there's something of the shadow in the air, and I just didn't feel that way here, so I'm not sure.
Could also be simple lust and infidelity.
It could. I suppose I've been told in the past to guard against making too much of a story out of something quite simple, but all the same. Shall we then? Shall we just get a night's rest and look for things in the morning?
Yeah.
I suppose.
Okay, you
What
guys.
do you think, Robar? I presume you agree. Okay, good.
He seems very
And Robar
amenable.
looks into the distance.
Right. He's
With a
constantly
frown on
brooding.
his face, like
Yep.
a constant frown. Goes.
He's
He's
always
just-
Robar's
my
always
family.
silhouette at the window.
I was gonna say he's always in profile, right? Like always, like. Oh man.
Stone is inside, I think.
Okay, you can have Stone. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, Stone will be with her inside. They're probably gonna like curl up and sleep together.
Aww.
Inga, are you inside or outside with Lillamon?
No, I'm inside.
Okay.
I'd like put up my bedroll in like some corner or something where there's not too much blood.
Okay. All right. And all of you then settle into sleep. Tani Bear the same. I assume you're inside.
No, we should put up
A watch?
what's the word? Yes, a watch.
Perhaps Robar could take the first watch.
He broodingly stares out the window as if in agreement.
No, he says something. I'm always on the watch for my
Since-
family.
Yes.
Since we have already checked the soot and whatnot on the floor, does the hearth seem like it's functional aside from the fact
Yes.
it's murder?
Yes.
Then I'm going to start a small fire.
Okay.
Just to try to get a little bit of the chill out of the house.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you're able to do that. There are still some pieces of wood actually that are in there, half charred and burned, but that they're not actually all. It isn't like the fire burned out. The fire was clearly forcibly put out one way or the other. So there's still some of that wood that's left. And you could actually go outside and gather some other sticks fairly easily. So
I'll do that then.
Okay. So you begin to start the fire. It sort of sputters and smokes quite a bit inside, and then kind of, begins to, as the sort of creosote buildup or whatever in the chimney begins to break away, the smoke rises into it, and so a pleasant little warmth fills this house, which is an odd feeling. I mean, you're all sleeping in a place where a murder of some kind took place, and yet there is a strange calm about the area and about the house itself, as all of you are sort of left with your thoughts. As Robar, continues to gaze profilingly out of the window, and all of you are there, sort of gathered. In the distance, you can hear, as I said, the very faint sound here of the water passing along.
I'll take second watch.
Okay, I was just about to ask that. So, Tani, when you pick up on the second watch, the first one passes essentially uneventfully. I'd like you to make a perception check for me, please.
No.
And do it anyway.
Okay.
You can't just say no to the DM.
I did 20.
Okay. Why is my thing not? Oh, that's why. I was like, why did the dice roller not reflect that? That's the reason. Okay. You do hear, as I said, this water kind of trickling from alone, but you also think you hear somewhere in the vicinity, in the village somewhere, you hear what sounds like muffled cries. Not cries for help, not please help me, God. Just sobbing is what it sounds like to you. Crying of some kind. And it's impossible to determine without going, house to house, like what hut it's coming from. But it's definitely there. And if you had to guess, it sounds possibly female, at the very least high-pitched, higher pitched sounds of crying that you can make out.
Like just a mournful kind of weeping, or like a
Yes.
full-on sobbing?
No. More like a almost like a keening would be the way to put it. Which is also odd set against the silence of the rest of the village. Like no one is coming out, like looking out their doors, like just, it's just this sound.
Given the nature of what we've been told, I think Tony will gradually go around and very quietly nudge each person awake and see if they're hearing it too.
Go ahead and make perception checks for me, Inga and the River. You guys can do it at +2 because you're being specifically pointed out to you.
Okay.
Terry, you're like, I hear water.
Sleep, yeah.
There's definitely water, and also I had dream sounds more recently. Okay, I thought at first it was the one. I'm like, well, no, River, you definitely hear this too. It definitely sounds like a kind of falling, keening cry. Again, does not sound like it's distress, like help me now, but mournful, kind of a wail, perhaps.
She blinks sleep away and goes, could that be Brunhilde? Is there, by the way, a tradition among the woodmen or something like that for mourning, specifically mourning, like, violent deaths and things like that? Like,
there can be, although remember that much of the people here are Bjornings, though. Just keep that in mind.
Right.
But in the village,
Yeah.
so. But yes, I mean there are traditions with both, and that's the reason I bring that up is there's not really traditions like that with the Bjornings. The Bjornings do what you guys saw at that funeral, where there's
Right.
people talk about their death and everybody gathers together. But it's definitely not crying and wailing. For the woodmen, that's a different matter. The woodmen do feel this way, but. That, of course, has to do with official mourning traditions, not necessarily what individual people might or might not do to react.
Hey,
they're
Will.
trying to, hey, called it.
hooray, Will!
So
Right.
yes.
Where do you see Will?
Oh, he's coming back into the.
I'm trying. Yeah, I'm trying.
Oh, I hear him. Okay.
Yes, yeah, I saw his box come up.
I shall recorrect Windows as we speak. So go ahead.
There he is.
Hooray!
Go ahead, River.
Different space. So River is saying, could that be Brunhilde? Can we get a sense of how far away the keening sound is? Is this like a sort of illusory thing happening because of the water, or is it actually quite nearby?
It's somewhere in the village, almost certainly. But again, specifying specifically where would be almost impossible. Again, without going house to house, because the houses are too closely clustered together. But it's near enough that you can actually hear it, and it's not incredibly loud. It's not incredibly loud. It's just you can hear it. Robar, this is a keening cry, which Tawny Bear heard during his watch of the evening. you agreed to do this watch, take the first watch. You seem to be completely okay with it. Made no objection to it at all, in fact. And so, yeah. So that's what this is.
The cry is sort of like that of when the first time that Count Rugen puts Wesley through the machine, and he's like, "How do you
God.
feel?" And he's like,
That yes.
interesting. That okay. Gotcha.
Also known as the scene that makes it impossible for me to show that movie to my daughter yet.
Oh.
I really, it's one of my favorite movies, but I can't.
Not the 51.
I can't. No. She had enough trouble. I showed her Devil in the Dark, which is it was my mother's favorite and one of my favorite original Star Trek episodes. And she liked it, but she was still struggling a bit with the monster. She's sensitive, so I got to be careful. Anyway, so yes.
All right. So that's likely Brunhilde. Sounds like she's in a great deal of pain.
As one would be.
As you're listening, the cry, by the way, fades and stops.
Never mind. All right, go back to sleep.
Thank you.
Good idea.
Actually, River says, actually, I've slept enough. I'll take this watch, and you can get to bed.
Suit yourself.
I'll be asleep if you hear anything. Don't hesitate to. Well, maybe hesitate a moment or two, but not.
That's all.
Okay. So, who's got third watch? Okay. And then, so the rest of your watch, Tawny Bear, passes uneventfully. River, on your watch, your sort of heightened attention based on what you had heard aside, there was no repeat of the cries, and in fact, no repeat of anything other than just the sound of the actual river that you can hear in the distance. But that's pretty much all on your watch. And Inga, when you were woken up for the final watch, you hear only the sounds of the early morning sort of approaching the dawn. You can hear as Lilamon is kind of stamping his feet outside of the up and down outside to keep warm, presumably, and stuff like that. But that's all. There is a slight sound of heavy breathing, and you sort of look around nervously until you realize it's actually Stone, who's got his head on top of the river's stomach, and is resting that way. Hey, Red Lear. Hey, Red Lear, by the way, congratulations on partnership, man. I saw that you just got that, so congratulations, dude. Red Lear is a Star Citizen.
Yeah, I was going to say,
streamer and
you were
stuff
going
like
to
that.
introduce me to him.
Yep. Oh, yes. Yeah, Red Lear. Yeah, meet Trendane, who has done machinima for Star Citizen, and Red Lear's a really good dude who is a long Star Citizen fan, and you do Trendane does bulkheads and stuff like that. So anyway,
and way back when I did the Galactic Guide narrations.
Trent is an awesome voice actor, so I just wanted to point it out because I know you're a big Star Citizen guy. So anyway, sorry about that. So the rest of that passes other than just those sounds that I mentioned before. Inga, go ahead, River. What's up?
What time did the sounds happen?
So that would have been the second watch. So probably you're dividing them by about 2 hours each, right? So that would have been probably close to midnight. Maybe like 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that would have been about when you heard it. So when the next day dawns, the sun comes in cold and clear, as it often does on spring mornings, and you folks find yourself awakening at different times and places within the still dark, secluded cabin, ready to move about if you like.
Well, Inga gets up and makes breakfast, I guess.
Okay.
I'm gonna say,
Since she's the one who slept the longest, I guess.
River wakes up and stretches a little bit and says, so we should probably divide up how we want to talk to the people we should talk to. I was thinking that, so we want to talk to Brunhilde and we want to talk to Rathvik. I thought that probably...
Well, no, Rathvik is dead.
Oh.
So
Oh, no, sorry, not Rathvik. Helm-gut.
I'm sure you would like to talk to Rathvik.
No, I'm sure we don't. That would solve all our
That
problems.
would be really easy.
Necromancy,
I'm not
that
actually
would be
dead.
fine.
No. Yes,
No, I
Helm-gut
meant
is the
Helm-gut.
foster father. Yeah.
Yeah, Helm-gut. Sorry. So we want to talk to both Helm-gut and Brunhilde, and I thought that perhaps figuring out what groups we should split into, it would be best to not be, a huge posse addressing one person at a time, and it might be a better use of our time to split up as well. So I was going to suggest that Inga and I perhaps go see Brunhilde while Tawny Bear and Rabar go to see Helm-gut. Inga, do you have an objection?
Nah, it's fine.
No, really.
Inga,
What's on your mind?
Yes.
Nothing's on my mind. I just need my breakfast first.
That's all right.
Okay.
Like Inga is like super disgruntled the entire time.
So she's a dwarf.
Hey-o!
Everything's normal here.
I only thought that it might be, considering the sensitive nature of every part of this, that perhaps, going to see Brunhilde with a smaller group of women might be more sensitive. But you don't have to. I could always go by myself if you prefer.
Nah, it's fine. This is just a very never mind. And Inga gets back to making breakfast.
Okay. All right. Assuming that you have nothing else you want to talk about, the breakfast is wonderful. At least wonderful because you're particularly hungry. And you emerge from the cabin to take in the village in the light of day. Now, I mentioned more or less the sort of arrangement of the village, which are these houses that are sort of arranged in a somewhat semicircular pattern, although there's a couple of little, there's a hut here and there that is not in that pattern, but semicircular pattern around this hill on top of which are the stones and ruins and several low walls of what must have been this watchtower at some point. And you do see some people in the daylight moving around from hut to hut. Some of them do look at you sort of curiously, like kind of give you a sort of a weird look. But they don't spend much time looking at you. And the general sense that you have is that there is this kind of pall over the entire village. Everyone seems to be moving more slowly. There's not a lot of chatter. If you remember that scene from the Two Towers film where Gimli comes into Edoras, right, and says, "You'd find more cheer in a graveyard." Like that's kind of what it feels like. It's very. It just feels everything feels slow and turgid somehow. But again, nothing weird. It doesn't seem like anyone is sort of hissing at you or anything. But definitely not a lot of attention once you get the initial bits of attention, and not a lot of energy or excitement in the place from what you can tell. So who is splitting up to go where? There's a number of houses around the area. There are some villagers that are, a lot of people moving back and forth about this well that is in the center of the town. Move to the well, pick up water from the well, go back to various places. There seems to be what looks like it might be kind of a stable where there's, you don't know how, it looks pretty small, but there does seem to be a small horse that is tethered to the outside, this like post to the outside of the building. So you folks could go wherever you like.
Inga first goes feeding the pony and then rejoins with the guys.
Okay. Lilamon is appreciative.
Yeah. Don't likewise.
Lilamon will remember that.
Yes, yeah, Lilamon will remember that.
So River will. So are we in our groups already? Are we decided that Inga and River are going to go one way and Rabar and Tawny Bear are going to go the other way?
Sounds
I
fine to
assume
me.
so.
Cool. So River will. We don't know where Brunhilde lives yet, right?
Correct. You're not
Right.
sure.
How large is this town? Like, how many houses are there roughly?
Maybe 20, 25. Not a lot of buildings.
Yeah.
Should probably go ask around where she lives.
Well, let's approach some of those people at the well. Maybe they'll know.
Okay. So who are you now? Are you guys doing that as a group? Or are you splitting up immediately, or are you going to all four go to the people at the well? I'm just curious.
Inga is just walking behind the river.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, we could. I mean, we can just find this information out at the same time, and split up then, so we
Okay.
can be a group.
All right, so if you guys are doing that, then you can head to the center of the well. There's a few people there. There looks to be a younger woman with a child who looks like perhaps a young girl whose dark matted hair kind of stares at you just nervously, holding to her mother's legs. And the mother is looks like has a basket of what might be wash of some kind and is pulling up something. There's also an old man, not a Heartwolf, some other old man, kind of leaning on what looks like a crutch, and then an old crone who is sitting on a bench, kind of with the cloak over her, and you can kind of see she kind of squints up at you and then everyone around her, swivels her head quite a bit. Reminds you very much like sort of like a crow, like looking back and forth. Yeah.
Ew.
Yeah, exactly.
The queen of garbage.
Oh
I
man,
love that character so much.
So much.
it is all Princess Bride references all day today.
Yeah.
So River will go up to the young woman. Actually, she'll just go. I mean, these people are fairly close together, right?
Yeah.
So she'll just, I think, addressing the group, will say, "Good morning, well met," and she'll introduce everyone, saying, "I'm the River," and the posse, and.
The posse, we've
River
heard of
and
you.
the posse.
No,
Playing in a town near you soon.
the posse. She'll introduce herself and others and say that. What was the name of the woman who first?
Ava.
Ava, that's right. Ava suggested that we might want to find a woman named Brunhilde. Do you know where she lives?
And so they all sort of look at you, and the young woman doesn't say anything, but the crone from her bench kind of says, "It's not too hard to discover where she can be found, lass. You could track her down by her crying. Yes, you can." And she kind of sort of, again, it really sort of reminds you of like a bird looking for a worm to kind of pick out of the soil. And the man on the old man on the crutch says, "Doesn't mean that she should be bothered, though. There's nothing but danger in that. She's been bothered enough. We don't need more strangers." And the woman on the bench kind of, "You think so? You think so? Maybe the problem is we haven't had enough people bothering us, don't you think?" And they kind of glare at each other. You wonder if there isn't some history there that you're not aware of, but but there seems to be some dislike anyway. The young woman has still said nothing.
Just to add one more. So we've got what was it? Lord of the Rings, The Princess Bride. I'm going to add just a dash of Dark Crystal where the old guy turns around. The woman is just, "Mind your tongue, Harridan."
Yeah, there you go. Oh man, all good things.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to be very careful with how I time the sips of this tea.
Yes, you will.
All right. The River kind of pauses, looks at the others for a second, goes, "Well, we certainly don't want to be a bother, but we do need to know where she lives, and also where Helm-gut lives, if that's all right."
And so the man says, "Helm-gut too. I see what it is then. You've come looking after that murder, a murder that child did."
No, we are just here for sightseeing.
And he kind of
like in a very sarcastic voice.
right, and so the old woman on the bench, like her head like whoosh, like swivels, like wham, like looking at you, and she's like, "It's funny to you, ain't it? I guess I don't blame you. If you're not from here, you might find it funny the way we do things. Take in people we don't even trust and then treat them like our own, and this is what you get. I always knew there was something wrong about that boy. I said it when he first arrived. But Helm-gut wouldn't listen, would he?" And the man on the crutch sort of says, "Be quiet, you old crone. You don't know what you're talking about. Like as not, it's just the same business. Fighting over a woman. Not that you'd know anything about that, would you? And he stares back at her, and she sort of says, I know well enough. And they kind of, again, there's this moment of silence where they're glaring at each other. And then breaking the extremely uncomfortable silence, the young woman says, are you looking to see what happened then to Brunhilde and Oderic? It's about Rathvik, is it?
River nods quietly to her.
And she says, she kind of looks and nods and says, you know, Brunhilde's been through quite a lot. You can hear her sometimes at night crying. And the woman on the bench says, she's not the only one, dear. We're all crying, aren't we? All of us. And the young woman looks at you and points out one of the houses, which is towards the end of the semicircle, and says, that's where she is, but if I were you, well, I don't know if I'd bother her because, well, she's just had a difficult time. You know, she really loved Oderic. She was something about, not Oderic, I beg your pardon. Let me change that up. She really loved Rathvik. You know, he was strong. But, and then her eyes drop a little bit and she says, it's probably not my place to say more. But he was strong, but that don't make him kind. Not all the time. And then she stops almost and puts her hand over her mouth like she's been saying too much.
What do you mean?
And she kind of nods, like shakes her head furiously.
River just kind of looks at Inga in a kind of stop helping way, and in a look, and says quietly to this young woman, "May I ask your name?"
And she looks at you and she says, "My name's Celia, miss."
Celia, are you Brunhilde's friend?
And she says, I was. Well, when she had one anyway. She don't really see any of us anymore. Hasn't really since Oderic was taken away.
Well, I promise you that we will be as gentle with her as we possibly can. All we want to know is what happened. We don't want to bother her. Or anyone, honestly. It's a sad business that's happened here. And we know that.
And she looks up at you and she says, I understand, but, well, you need to know that Brunhilde had... And she kind of looks around, then she looks down at her daughter, and she says, Sina. And Sina, apparently that was the child's name, kind of looks up at her with wide eyes. You would guess that Sina is maybe 2.5, very little. And she says, Sina, I want you to go over there. And she points to the other end of the bench. So the old crone is on one end of the bench. She says, I want you to go over there. And Sina kind of mutely just shakes her head. And she says, and the mother says more firmly, Celia says, oh, go on now. I'll be right here. I just want to talk to this person about something.
Tawny will kind of offer his hand and say...
She looks way up, like all of a sudden she like takes it and she's like...
However, he also has a portion of a twice-baked honey cake. And
she sees it and she kind of like... And then she looks up at Celia, like, you know, and so Celia looks at you, Tawny Bear, and says, what's in it, if you don't mind my asking?
And he lays out the exact ingredients and it's
in great detail.
Gives her a portion of it, and it says, you know,
and thus the day was over, and we had to go to sleep.
Right, I was going to say 2 days later,
guaranteed to have a nice narcotic effect.
So she says, "It's all right, Sina," and so Sina takes a piece and kind of, you know, chews it, and then puts up her other hand to you, Tawny Bear. And
so Tawny's like, let's sit. And he walks over and sits next to the crone.
Okay. And the crone also kind of looks up at you and meh. It doesn't actually say anything, just meh, like that, you know, like this.
Well, he was going to offer her a piece of it as well. Actually, he was going to offer one to both of them and say, if you have nothing nice to say, your mouth is best left to chewing. Right. And he was going to offer them both a thing and go like, here, shut up, you know, kind of thing. But
Sina is small enough that when she sits on the bench, which is not that high, but it is, it's not flat. I mean, it's a little higher off the ground. Her legs kind of swing back and forth. So there's this, so you have this picture of the crone on the right, sort of, looking up like the crow up at a tawny bear. And then you've got Sina with her legs kind of swinging back and forth. And then this huge form of tawny bear just in the middle, basically kind of like the tower in the
Two
center
ends
of
of the
bench.
bridge.
Yep, exactly. Chatting
Very
to them.
Studio Ghibli kind of.
Yeah, there you go, exactly.
Totoro, yeah.
So Celia turns back to you and she says, "The truth is that Rathvik was cruel to her. He beat Brunhilde sometimes, and you better believe that Odoric saw it. They were, remember, foster children together, and they were connected to each other in a strong way. Odoric didn't like it. And so, I don't know what you're going to find, but whatever happened there, well," and she kind of shakes her head, "Rathvik wasn't innocent, that's all I'll say."
River takes this in very seriously, and her demeanor changes somewhat from just kind of gently listening to, like...
Oh, good.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for telling us. That does give us a different angle on the situation.
And she nods. I want to jump to you for 1 second, Tani. The crone who's sitting up there finally kind of like, although she's clearly staring at you and you're aware of her presence, kind of not elbows you, not hard, but I mean, it's like, type of thing, like with her left elbow. And she looks up and she says, "So you're looking into that business with Odoric, huh?"
Tani kind of glances down at the child and looks over. Yes.
So she drops into a whisper, which probably Siri, who's not spending a lot of time looking, is too busy, like really enjoying the cake. You get the impression. Now, I do want to say one quick thing about her. None of this village has a lot of money, and you can tell that her clothes are, threadbare, but they've also been patched multiple times in what you would guess to be pretty involved ways. Like her mother obviously spent a lot of time trying to keep her clothes together as best she could, and she's not famished, right? That said, though, you could tell this is way better than like typical fare, that she usually gets, so she's really enjoying that. So she's kind of like off in a twice-baked honey cake dream, basically, while you're talking.
Legs kicking back.
Yeah, exactly.
Full body chew.
Right. She's really enjoying it. In the meantime, though, the crone says, kind of almost like in a stage whisper, she says, "The truth is, Odoric always hated Rathvik. Always hated him. Because he took Odoric's place in Helm-gut's heart. Helm-gut had Odoric as his foster son, took him in when nobody else would, he did. But then Rathvik came in, and Odoric couldn't stand it. He was jealous all the time. I knew it. I knew there would be something that happened between them. They denied it, but I knew. I see everything around here. I do." So, Robar, in the meantime, you were standing next to Inga and River. I want to ask now you're standing next to the group with Inga and River, and you've just heard what Celia is saying quietly, but, Robar and Inga, you guys are right next to her, so you can hear this. Are you doing anything in particular or not? Because you don't hear the thing going on with Tawny Bear and all that stuff that's back at the bench, despite the stage whisper. So what are you doing in the midst of this?
Just want to check that my connection is okay. You hear me okay?
Yeah, you're a little on and off, but you're okay. We can get you.
Okay. Well, I think Robar is probably keeping an eye on the entrances and exits to this place because he sees old creepy crone. He doesn't trust any of this.
Okay. Open space though. This is around a well, I should say.
Okay.
So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So there's definitely land about. But yes.
Then I'm watching the well because last time. Well,
this tentacle comes up over the well. Yeah. No, you don't get any.
You're
sense
all traumatized.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my god.
I so badly want Robar to say, "Well, actually."
Very nice. So
only quality.
God, it was the well, actually.
It was the well, actually. Yeah. So so Celia, looks at all of you and says, "She won't talk about it much, miss, but there's something that happened there. Besides the death, I mean. She just won't speak of it. But something happened. I don't know. And she just kind of sort of seems at a loss, almost.
Do you also know where Helm-gut lives?
And she says, oh yeah, he's actually not that far from me. And she turns around and points to what looks like about the middle of the hut, sort of semicircular, the middle of the semicircle is one hut. And she says, I'm only a couple houses over.
Thank you so much for your help.
And she nods. She says, please, whatever you find, just treat them justly. The people here, when they make up their mind about someone, they just... And she kind of trails off. She says, well, people don't like change much, I guess. Just use your wisdom from out there. We don't have much of it in here, miss.
I think there are wisdoms that come from roaming abroad, but there are wisdoms that come too from staying in one place and learning it like you would a family. So,
she nods.
All right, well, turning to Robar and Inga, shall we get on with our business?
I think so.
Yep.
All right. So she'll walk over to Tawny Bear and is it Cena, the little girl?
Yes.
It's
Cena.
John Cena.
Oh, jeez. No.
I was taking Warrior Princess.
Oh, yes.
So River will just walk over to Tawny Bear and say, well, we know Helm-gut lives in that hut over there. Inga and I are going to go and visit Brunhilde. Do you have any other honey cakes on you just now?
1 of 3.
Thank you. So she'll take that just to bring a gift to Brunhilde because it is obviously.
Wait.
What?
Inga just leaves, goes back to the house where they were staying to get to her packing stuff that was on the horse, and gets a bottle of Scrumpy.
Oh.
Wait, let me check what it actually was, because I remember starting out with something. Where's my item list? Yeah, but proceed. I will look up what the booze exactly was.
Okay.
But,
While you're doing that, Tani, you feel... Thank you for the cheer, Shadzar. Too many people talking at once, yeah. So, Tawny Bear, you feel something tugging at your tunic. Sort of at the bottom of your leather tunic that you're wearing.
On the crone side or Cena side?
On Cena's side.
Okay, good.
And you're now standing up, I believe. Yeah. Why don't you listen to me? No, it's Cena. On
Because
Cena's
you're
side.
old and crotchety.
Yes.
I found it. It was a flask of dwarven spirits.
Okay.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Well,
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. That's no joke.
I kind of looked down at Cena.
And you see that Cena, who now Celia is standing next to her, like obviously your mother is telling her, okay, that's it now. But Cena is holding up to you what looks like a little wooden figurine. You can't really see details without taking it from her, but she's holding it to you.
I'll take it and hold it up and look at it.
It seems to be a wooden figurine that has a couple of dots for eyes, and then like a smile, and then there seems to be what looks like little bits of thread or straw or something like that on the head of this thing. And Cena like looks at you and smiles, and Celia says, "Well, Cena, are you sure?" And Cena nods, and then so Celia says, "I don't know what to say, sir. It's something that, well, her father made that for her, sir, some years ago. Before she was born, he thought it was important for her to have something, and she's never seen him because he was, and then she kind of trails off, and you get the impression she doesn't seem angry, which suggests to you maybe he died before she was born, not that he left. Mm-hmm. But anyway, she says, I guess she hasn't had too many other people be kind to her in those days, in these times since. So, there you are, sir. And so she kind of nods at you. Sina looks at you and kind of nods mutely, again with that smile, and then turns away back to her mother.
When Inga gets back with the bottle, she just looks at River, holds the bottle up. We might need this, and puts a bottle like in her pouch or something. She has something like a bag. No, I don't know.
When Inga gets back, River is hastily just
I'm fine.
Really has something in her eye. Goes, that's very wise. Thank you, Inga. Yes, and thank you, Tony.
Robar, I want you to make a perception check for me, please.
Could you make that check for me?
So you'd like someone? How about we have? Yes, I could, but why don't we have one of the people that's not me do that? Have either any of the other three of you?
Just using the thing.
Yeah, just use roll a regular d20, and then we'll add.
Which of us has the
Here, so here's a d20. Boom. Oh.
And
Sorry.
2, okay.
I didn't add anything to it though, so I don't know.
I was going to say, which of us has the highest perception?
Yeah. What is? Do you remember, Will? What Robar's perception bonus is?
I think it's like a +3.
Okay. All right. You just as everyone sort of stands to go, you feel this general sense of unease. I don't want to overemphasize. This is not the shadow. You're not being watched by the Nazgul, but you have this general sense of unease about you, because you mentioned that you were looking around and scanning the area specifically, and you have this general feeling of disquiet. Not that there's an imminent attack or anything. Just something feels weird about the immediate environment.
Okay.
Okay. So now, if you guys are going to do what you suggested, some of you are going to go. 2 of you are going to go to Brunhilde's hut, and 2 of you to Helm-gut's hut, if I understand things correctly. Who's going to Helm-gut?
Robar.
Guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with you guys.
We're segregating this by gender.
Right. Good. I want to make sure we're very clear. So we're going to go there. Oh, my pleasure, Stump. Thank you. I'm glad that you were enjoying the great listen. Listen, it's the players who do it, Stump. But thanks. Let's work with Tawny Bear and Robar here. You go to what supposedly is Helm-gut's hut, and as you get there, it's complete silence around it. Like there's no stirring or anything else, and the door is closed. It's not locked, presumably, but it is closed.
Sorry, and we're expecting Helm-gut to be in at this time, right?
Presumably, yep.
Yeah. I'll knock on the door.
Okay. Silence. No reply.
Nobody home?
Well, you tried. Go back.
Well,
All right, that's
that's
it.
the end of the story.
Back to the
Good game, everybody.
going back to my hearth and my fields. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Giving it all up. No, there's no
All right.
reply.
I looked at Tony Bear. Maybe you should try if maybe you've got a stronger knock.
I could probably take the door off its hinges if they wanted to. But if he's simply not there, that would be rude. So.
I'll try again with my knock.
Okay.
I mean, I could do a gentler knock. It would.
Try a gentle knock.
Okay.
Okay. Still no one comes to the door, no response.
Let's presume he's not here
Where did he go?
to work. Whatever he does for work.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're just...
Which we don't know that. We didn't bother to ask.
Is there a window we could look in on?
There is actually, yes. It's not. It's a window's a little generous. It's more like an opening which seems to have been covered over by a wooden board, but it is askew, so you could look through it.
Yeah, I'll take a little look through.
There is
Needle it in.
there is a man with gray hair and a gray beard who is lying on a bed towards the back of this place. It's very small and seems to be lying. From what you can tell, this is, again, it's fairly dark inside, but there is some shafts of light coming in through various places. His eyes are open, and he seems to be staring at the ceiling.
I relayed this information to Tony Bear. I said that there's a guy in there. Old guy, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. I think that's our guy.
Is he breathing?
I You could have fallen. Maybe you can't get up.
Okay.
We should slap chop. That helps with everything.
I tell you what, why don't you knock and I'll look and see if he reacts.
Okay.
So Tony Bear knocks and I
Just short of
Yeah.
breaking the lock.
No, no reaction at all. I mean, but not like the steely-eyed reaction of someone who's dead. You are pretty sure that he's breathing because you do see his head like shift slightly, but no choice to, no movement, like no getting up, no anything.
I think he's breathing in there, but he's definitely not reacting to the whole door situation.
Also, Robar, make a perception check for me too, please, while you're staring in there.
Or one of us make it.
I will.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. Yeah. So someone
Tony
can roll.
Bear,
Just
what
I
one.
think
I'll
Why
do
don't
it
you
this
take it? Because yeah.
Okay. You're like, wow. Wow. So Robar accidentally like pounds his face into the board. Oh! It's just, I'm blind. I'm blind. No. That's not gonna happen. Wow. Yeah. So
I've genuinely never in my life double snake eyes on a 20-sided die.
yeah, that's
That's
crazy. I have a couple times,
takes
but
talent.
yeah, that's something else.
Sort of
You're
rusty
like.
nail in the board.
You're like, guy staring at the ceiling, man. That guy staring up there.
He is.
There's a ceiling and he's staring at it. And
He's looking at something up there. I don't know what it
there's a
is.
ceiling
but
he's staring at. For
It
sure.
must be pretty good.
Also, he's on a bed. Did I mention that? He's definitely on a bed.
You did.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought. Sorry.
Big bit of information for you. He was definitely on a bed.
That's why you said when he's fallen, he can't get up. Like,
Exactly.
At least he fell into bed. Was
Right,
what I
yeah,
meant
yeah.
to say.
Yeah,
But the
he's on a
So
bed.
slap chop came up instead. I don't know.
What kind of pose are we talking about here in bed? Is this like a spread eagle situation? Is this a fetal position scenario?
He is lying straight on his back with his arms by his sides. And in fact, it does feel, I don't want to lead you into thinking he's dead. He's not. But it does feel very funereal. It's not, he's not curled up or shifted or in any way.
Autopsy it is then. All right.
Yeah, I relay this to Tony Bear and I'm like, take the splinter out of my eyeball.
This is why I say needle in the eye. As soon as you put your eye in that hole, that's right.
Yeah, Trent's run into that in another scenario, another adventure. This happened to a person. Anyway,
I'm not sure he's okay in there. He's just staring at the ceiling. I don't know. He's lying down in bed like he's dead. I
All
don't
right.
think he is dead, but it's like he's dead.
All right. That's enough for me. And Tawny just opens the door
okay.
and proceeds in.
Now, when you open the door, you see exactly what Robar described to you. There's this man with gray hair, with a gray beard, gray, not long hair really, but to his shoulders anyway, that's matted. But when you walk into his house, his reaction is immediate. He rolls to his feet, like off of the bed, and not in sort of a like. It's startling because he's just there, rolls to his feet, and underneath the bed, he grabs an enormous axe and stares at you and is like, "What are you doing in my house?" Like, so again, it's sort of like dead, like immediately like that.
Whoa. Okay, there.
We feared ill had befallen you when you did not respond to our knocks.
I didn't
knocked
respond
3
to my
times.
knocks because I want privacy. What are you doing here?
Seeking justice.
And he says, and he pounds he pounds the floor and stands up simultaneously, like, "Doof," and then stands up. Now, Tawny Bear is definitely still somewhat larger than this guy, but not by a lot. This guy rises, and Robar, you in particular can see that the way that his axe easily moves to his hand. You remember I described Winifred and the way that he was kind of like Williford, like moving his axe back and forth, and he was nervous and everything. The way that this guy stands, this is clearly a guy who uses this axe more than to fell wood. Like, this is very obviously a guy who was used to using this in this environment, and his balance, like the way that he just like bed forward jumps up, this is a guy who if you had to guess, is a person who, not unlike you in some cases, has very seldom had the chance of having a full sleep. He's always had to have this readiness to fight at all times. This is a warrior. You would bet your reputation as a Dunedain on it. And he sort of stands glaring up slightly, not a lot, but a little bit, at Tawny Bear and says, "All I see are two strangers who came in my home. And one of you," and he looks at you, Tawny Bear, "a Bjorning who ought to know not to violate the rules of hospitality. Haven't we all suffered enough?" And he's got the, axe like. Now, he has not yet drawn back the axe, but he's very much like the, type of thing. Thank you for the host, Valdrian.
For that trespass, I apologize, but I will ask one favor, and I will lay this oath alongside it. If you will hear me out and consider what I have to say, I will leave without argument.
And he sort of stares at you for a minute. And for the first time, Tawny Bear, I'd like you to make a perception check for me, too, please.
Okay.
Here it comes again. Double ones. Woo! 6.
Wow. I'm glad you're getting these out of the way right now. Thank you very much for the cheer as well. I appreciate Valdrianth, and thank you all for coming by. Thanks for the host again. This one doesn't require much of a perception check to see it. You smell alcohol. If you had to guess, you think that this guy's been drinking, and in fact, you can actually see. Basically on his bed, the thing that you thought was a pillow is actually what looks like a wineskin that he was resting his head on. And so he kind of looks up at you and says, his anger fades slightly, and he says, "All I do is listen, and it's never done anything but get me in trouble. But fine." And he turns, like with his axe, like a sweep, and says, "Have your say and then get out." And he turns back and he goes over to the bed and he sits down heavily on it. His sort of head is staring down between his, legs are slightly apart as he sits, but his axe is still in his right hand.
Some days ago, shortly after the end of a bit of chill up north, where I come from, we found a boat, and within that boat we found the body of Maravich the Mighty and Odo, both dead. Ropes, which had apparently held someone that Maravich was taking back for judgment, had been cut and Maravich's sword removed. There were some remains of orcs with spears set through them. And so we were, after Maravich's funeral, sent to find who it was that had possibly done him in, and also who it was he was bringing back for judgment. As we have progressed, it seems more and more likely that this person is one and the same, and that would be Odoric. You say that you have done nothing but listen, and that it has brought you nothing but trouble. I invite you then to speak and teach me what you know, that it might bring some peace back to this little hamlet.
So as you've been talking, and when you mention Odoric, you mention Maravich, you can see that his head is slightly, risen, so that by the time you're done, he's kind of looking directly at you. And you can sort of see that you have his attention, would be a good way to describe it. Make a... Yep.
I shall make a yep.
Make a yep. Thank you. I would like you to make a persuasion check for me, but I'm going to let you do this at advantage. I'm also going to quickly show off my son.
Natural 20.
See, my son arrives and immediate natural 20.
Hey!
That's what happens. See, what do you think about
I love
Natural
when,
luck.
You gave
I
good
love
luck?
when the dice are just to the role playing done. It is good.
It's exactly, and it's amazing kind of how often that actually happens. This is a small human, yes. My son is not yet 2, but
small human.
he is a small human, and I think you just woke up from your nap, huh? Mm.
Give him a twice baked honey cake.
Right, and he hands to you a wooden figurine. What, my boy? You wanna? But you're like, he's like, I don't want to get off. I want to continue to watch what's going on here.
Aww.
Or very
Hi,
bald
Mom.
slogan. And
Hi,
Mrs.
Mom.
Arv. So you can see he kind of, his head, as I said, he was sort of staring right at you. And then he stands up again with his axe in his hand. And Robar, you feel like Spidey senses like, oh crap, like, oh God. And he steps up to Tawny Bear, and then he drops the axe to the ground. And he lowers his head, and he begins to weep. And he says, I never wanted to do anything. I just wanted everyone to be... And he, sort of stumbles back over to his bed, and falls onto the ground. Like, just his resolve clearly is broken. And he just sits there and weeps. You guys can either intervene or you can wait, because he's definitely not telling you to leave.
Oh, yes. I'm going to help him up.
Okay.
Just sit in his bed.
So he, after you do that, you have to wait a couple of minutes, and then he says, Odoric was... I never thought he would do what he did. The night I heard Brunhilde scream. I was outside at the well. I heard her scream, and I came to find out what was going on. And then I found him. Odoric was standing over Rathvik's body. He had a dagger in his hand, and he was staring at them. And I struck him. The dagger fell out of his hand. He was always angry. Always, Odoric, all the time. That's why I felt I could take him in. I've always been angry, too. You know what it's like. Both of you. I can see in your eyes the way it is. When you kill a man, it don't leave you. Every single man I've ever killed stays with me. Every face stays with me, and I know what it's like. Digs down into you and never leaves. And I knew what it was like to be that way, and I didn't want him to be that way. I thought maybe I could love him enough for it to matter, and it didn't matter. It never, ever mattered. And he, pounds the bed by him. And then he says, I failed. I failed in raising him. And so, Rathvik's dead, and it's my fault. And my daughter there's nothing left for her, and that's my fault too. And my foster son's a murderer, and that's also on me. Brunhilde hasn't spoken to me since. I don't blame her.
How long has it been?
So by the time this happens, it's been probably...
Is it 2 weeks?
Yeah, about 2 weeks probably.
But when he gets to the part about when you kill a man, blah, 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 and he's going through that portion of his speech, Tawny Bear's fist keeps tightening around his staff until it starts to creak.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of the wood is like bordering on splintering, and he's just, he knows very well what that's.
Yep.
Yep.
So does Rabar, for that matter.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Fresh wounds. often seem to take forever to heal. But as someone who has fought as much as you have, you know, they eventually do. There's still a soreness that lingers. But they do heal. It takes patience, time, and love from those who care about you. She may not speak to you now. She will.
And he kind of stares up at you like, just kind of, the description might be as if he's drinking in your words greedily, you know. It sounds maybe the first thing that he's been drinking that isn't alcoholic for a long time. And he says, I hope that's true. Yeah, I would have thought there was some rest for us before the final one. I ain't had any since. You know what makes it worse, though? And he kind of looks back up. When I struck the boy, when I looked at him, he almost looked surprised. How could you be surprised? How could you be surprised after you did something like that? How? I just wouldn't have thought it of him. I wouldn't. And then he dies down again.
I suspect there are threads to this tale that have not yet been woven into its full fabric.
And he doesn't say anything. Okay. Then he just sort of sits, kind of, you know, just his head sort of drooped down. At this point, now that you guys have been in here for a while, you can tell that there's a pretty bad smell from in here. It's the smell of someone who has not bathed and has been drinking a lot. And that's basically what this is. Hey, what's up, Anydo? So, okay.
I'd like to object to all the feelings I'm having right now. Not okay.
Not cool. Sorry. It is...
Object all you want. We're going to keep making more.
I was going to say, too bad. More feels coming.
Now it's your scene.
Anything else from that you guys want to talk to Helm-gut about? Or anything else you want to do?
There is one other thing I want to do, but I kind of want to wait and let the ladies go.
Okay. So we're going to...
Yeah, I have one question,
Go ahead,
I can wait.
Oh, you wanted to wait?
Yeah, I can wait.
Do you want it to wait or not? It's up to you, because I don't...
Well, one out of character question that I could ask now and then in character. So the out of character question was Rafik who had been beating his wife. Is that correct?
Correct, and he was the one who was killed, according to what you've heard so far, by Oderic.
Okay.
Or
cool.
by Oderic. I really need to pronounce that Oderic, not Oderic. Oderic! No, it's not. No, it's Oderic. Sorry. Yes. Okay.
Like he's smelly.
Yes. Let us shift the scene then to the outside of what you've been told is Brunhilde's hut, where River and Inga and Stone are waiting outside this door.
Before getting there, I think that River will, once River and Inga are alone with Stone, River will just kind of like look to Inga quite seriously and say, Inga, are you all right? You seem a little off this morning.
Well, it's just like a sad situation and all that. Let's just go.
But I'm only asking because I just feel that if we're about to speak to a woman who's been through something very, very traumatic is a word that, yeah, exactly. I'm looking for a word that isn't actually that anachronistic. But anyway, exactly. And I just want us to be able to both deal with her as generously and gently as possible.
I can be gentle.
I was waiting for that.
I believe you, says River, not lying through her teeth.
At all.
At all. I believe you, he says. perhaps slightly too enthusiastically. But it has been my experience that if I myself am dealing with my own problems, it's difficult to then shift into being as kind to others' problems as I perhaps would like to be. And if there's anything that that you want to talk about before we talk to her, I'm here to listen to that.
It's fine. Let's just go.
All right. Okay, so at Brunhilde's door, then River knocks.
Okay.
Knock, knock.
I was expecting Inga to drop kick the front door. Let's just go.
Wrong
Blam!
character. I had a different character for that.
Oh goodness. Okay. So, you knock on the door, and there's sort of a quiet. Yes. Kind of sounds strained. The response, and quiet.
Brunhilde?
And she there's a silence, and then, that's me.
I'm called the River, and this is Inga, and we wondered if we could speak to you a little. We've brought honey cakes and booze.
No, don't say that.
Oh, don't say that.
Booze is, no.
We brought.
Oh my god.
We're wondering if we could speak to you for a while.
We brought tales of ourselves and you. Okay. So there's a silence, and then you hear quiet steps coming to the door, and then the door opens, and I'll actually I have on stream a picture of this person, who you folks can see.
Wait, really?
Well, it has to catch up first.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, there's always
okay,
a delay.
there it is.
It'll pop up.
How come?
Oh, go ahead, River. What's up?
How come? This is a logistical question. How come you on this stream are not laggy, but I am? But we're all laggy.
Well, because when I broadcast, I'm broadcasting, and there's always a 9 to 10 second delay when everybody else gets it. You guys are hearing me speak in real time, obviously, because we're on Zoom. So
Right.
I could share it on Zoom. The problem is, as Tren knows from other circumstances, and probably Will knows this too, when you try to share screen, everything goes like the internet does not like sharing images via Zoom or other things. So anyway, yeah. So that's
it's about uploading on two different platforms. I think Zoom is then like, aha, let me steal your upload speed, and then the stream is like,
yeah, exactly. So that's why.
Okay.
Okay. So, and hey, what's up, Antrox? I'm glad you like this story. So do I. I've been enjoying watching them play through it and tell it with me. Okay. So, she is standing at the door, sort of looking at both of you. The door open,
Wait, may we come in?
and she nods and she says, "There's not a lot of room, but you can do the best you
Well-
can."
I'm small. I don't take much room, so don't worry about it.
And she nods and turns around and comes back. Thank you, Valdrian. Turns around and leaves the door behind you, and you guys can follow in if you wish. You find yourself inside what looks like this is what a pretty well-maintained place. It looks like, or at least it looks like it used to be. But there are signs that things have not been attended to, not for a long while, but at least a little while. There seems to be some dust here and there. There seem to be there is a small hearth with a very small fire, if you can even call it a fire, but it is sputtering, so I guess it kind of counts. There is a table, but the thing that strikes you is that there are these baskets right near the door, basically to the right as you enter, of flowers. They look to be either flowers or flower petals, some kind of white flower, and you can actually see some of the baskets of them in that picture that are lined up next to the door, and it stands out. They're very fragrant, so there's a pleasant smell within the cabin, despite the fact that the rest of the place looks essentially neglected. She herself, Brunhilde, has very puffy red eyes, as if, as having been crying clearly, and with this sort of a face that just hasn't smiled in a long time. Would be sort of a good way to describe it. The other thing that you notice is that her. Give me just 1 second here, so I can make sure that I'm right about this myself. Yes, okay, that's what I thought. So her arms are also bare. And Inga and River, I'd like you to make a perception check for me, please.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, exactly, X5, yeah.
18.
Okay. Okay. So River is definitely like arms. I see arms there. I've seen arms before, and these are definitely arms. But Inga, you note on both arms there are what look like healing, but definitely faded bruises, and there's a number of them on both arms.
How old do they look?
Weeks.
And how long do we know has since the husband has died?
About two.
About 2
well,
weeks.
2 if you 2.5 maybe if you figured put everything together. 2.5.
Weeks.
Quick question: Can
Sure.
the flowers that are in there do they appear like, are they something that has any specific significance that I could check for?
Let's see. You can make a traditions check for me if you have that, and we'll see if you can remember that or know about that.
She is also beyonding, right?
Yes.
Okay. So she's probably huge, right?
Well, comparatively, although not as huge as Tawny Bear, but yes. Yeah. So your guess, River, is you don't know as much about sort of like Bjorning specific traditions, but you do know that there are particular kinds of flowers that, and they come in different names. Sometimes there's one that's known as Queen's Leaf that this might be similar to, that is placed upon graves, placed upon or used in wakes or ceremonies for the dead. And the thing that's important to remember is that if this is Queen's Leaf, you know that it's difficult to gather together. These flowers don't just grow in like tons and tons of bunches. So there was some work that must have been done in assembling these. This would have been like wandering fairly far afield to be able to get this. Not 100 miles, but definitely not. It's not all going to be in one spot.
So the first thing before, as they're walking in, she'll have asked if Stone can come in the first place.
And she says, I just, if you'll just tell him to be careful of the fire over here. Stone kind of walks in. And Stone, you notice, River, when Stone walks in, that he's kind of like, he's sort of sniffing, and you're assuming part of the sniffing is like, those flowers are no joke. Like they're definitely, as I said, pleasant and fragrant for you guys, but for the dog, they're like wablam. So, he's
Stone
definitely
sneezes.
yes. Yes.
Shivansh, is that Queen's Leaf?
And she nods. Aye, it is. Oh, if you please. And there's like one chair by the table, and then there's her bed. And she sits down on the end of her bed, and she says, I don't really have another spot. I mean, you're welcome to take the other end if you like. Okay.
No, River just kind of like easily slinks into a very comfortable looking sitting on the floor.
Okay.
And she just says, I mean, wait, yes. Ingle, you'll sit at the chair?
Nah, I'll lean against the wall.
Oh, okay. Either way,
this chair must be huge, right? So I would have
it's
to
fairly
actually
large
climb
for you,
on
yeah.
it, right?
Oh, well, in that
Probably.
case, I'll sit on the chair. That's fine.
Okay.
Whatever makes the most sense in the situation. But so River just kind of tentatively says, I've such a bounty of Queen's Leaf. It must have taken you a long time to gather.
And she says, it took a lot longer to gather it than it did for everything that happened to happen. I guess I wanted something to take more time,
Can you tell us about what happened?
And she says, it's not the kind of thing I really feel like. Well, I'm sorry that it happened. You notice
I
that...
need you to pay attention.
Right, so you
So
notice...
Inga takes out the bottle, right?
Okay.
Like she just like does it very smoothly, right?
Okay.
Not saying a word, just like keeps paying attention
Okay.
while she talks.
Okay. So she looks sort of around and says, well, I mean, you've probably heard it from the rest of them. So you must know what happened.
We know.
Well, we know what others have said happened, but all the stories are incomplete. And what we should... Do you know why we're here? Have you spoken to anyone else about our purpose here?
And she says, no, but anyone who comes from the outside, well, begging your pardon, but anyone who comes from the outside only comes to me for information about that.
Has anyone else besides us come?
Well, you mean after all the people in the village who'd made up their minds, made their decisions already? And you can see her voice gets loud for a minute, and then she just kind of like... Dear God, what the hell?
Sorry.
What was that?
Something very shrill just started happening.
Yeah, same thing.
See, I thought that was you, Arv.
No, I wasn't.
I thought you were saying she was like ding 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 ding.
I'm guessing well, Will
Since
is frozen
Will is
again,
frozen,
so I'm assuming that was something that happened on his end. No, I did not hit a tuning fork loudly into the microphone.
That's literally, yeah. It was
Wow.
like suddenly she went very loud and very
Exactly.
shrill.
That would have been great. I should have just integrated that. Suddenly she's like this, and it's a bad outtake from Minority Report. No,
God.
it's we'll see what happens when Will gets back to us. So where was I? Yes. Yeah. So she says, there's this edge of anger that then quickly sort of dissipates, and then she just says, they all came to me at one time. Sometime they did. I know the pictures are messed up. Bear with us, everybody. Will has been having troubles with his internet. He'll come back on in a minute.
Inga looks around the room to see if she can spot like a cup or a mug standing on like a table or something.
There really is not, actually. There's just stuff that there's a plate, but there's no that's on the table, but there really does not look like there's been a lot of food or anything else consumed as of late.
Okay, so in that case, Inga just like walks over to her and hands her the bottle.
And she kind of looks at the bottle and looks up at you. Seems a little confused.
Up at me, right?
Yes, up at you, up at high up at your triumphant form, yes. Yes, and sort of looks at it confused. Help. She says, I thank you, but this is part of what got us in trouble in the first place, you know. And she doesn't like shove it back at you, but she kind of like gently guides it away from her.
Do tell.
River says, we haven't made up our minds about what happened, and we're not here to gratify any lurid curiosity. We're here because we are seeking news of Odoric, and specifically seeking news of him in connection to the murder of Maravich, who, so far as we know, is the only person to come here and investigate what happened. So our pursuit of Odoric is what has led us here, and the first that we heard of there being any Kinstrife was last night. So anything that you can tell us about what happened that can help us understand Odoric, what led him to behave as he did. We're not even sure at this point whether Odoric is the one who killed Maravich or not. Oh, what?
And she
What
sort
have you
of,
been doing here all day, by the way, since everything happened?
so first of all, when you say the thing, let me back up slightly. When River says the thing about we're not even sure, you can definitely tell. Actually, both of you make insight checks for me. Then Inga, I'll deal with what you said.
Okay.
And you will deal with me, yes.
Then I will deal with your comments next.
Insight, you
Oh,
say?
God.
Yes. Yeah, not
wait,
investigation.
I
Insight,
didn't-
not investigation.
Ah, okay, it saved me. Maybe. Insight, where is it?
So
Wait,
River's
insider investigation.
God damn it!
yeah, insight.
God damn it! It's actually words.
You just notice that she seems to stand up and take notice, so to speak, not actually stand, but seems more alert when you say the thing about that you don't even know if Odoric was responsible. She's kind of like interested or intrigued might be the way to describe it. Inga, when you say this thing about, where have you been all day? And she said, most of the time, she said, I spend most of my days indoors.
Doing what?
And she says, well, sorting usually. You can't just put the flowers on the graves directly, you have to take the petals out and put them in a certain order. And she points to the baskets, and you can see that the baskets, now that you look more closely, they are all queen's leaf, probably, but it looks like some of them have been for the petals, some of them for maybe the stems, some of them for, like, they've been divided carefully into different parts of the flowers, into these different baskets.
What do you sort them like?
And she says, well, the petals are the ones that go on the grave, the stems go all around the grave, and then she says, it's a tradition, that's what you do for the dead. Now, both you, for Inga and River both, there is something very odd for you about this, in that she's definitely, the puffy eyes and everything suggest that she was crying, but the demeanor she's giving you right now is very almost semi-businesslike, like not impolite, but very sort of like there's a kind of icy something or other resolve or some veneer that you're noticing as she's speaking to you about these things.
Do you want us to help you carry the flowers to the grave?
And she says, well, I thank you, but it's really the widow's job to do that. But thank you.
How many baskets of flowers are there? Is it like one basket or what?
No, so there's like 3 baskets by the door, but each basket is something different, as I said. They're, by the way, decent sized baskets. Like, I don't know if you can see in that picture, but it's a decent sized basket with a lot of petals in it. So.
Well, I mean, everybody needs help sometimes, right? I'm sure nobody would mind if we would like carry a basket for you.
And she nods. She says, well, I appreciate that, but it also has to be done at night, not during the day.
Oh, may I ask where the grave is?
And she says, it's not far from here. We have there's a space where the villagers are kept down to the south a little bit by the river, maybe 5 minutes from here.
And
do you want...
Oh, sorry. And is it at midnight that you go?
Oh, somewhere around there. Just sometime when I know no one else will be up.
Do you want us to come with you tonight? Would you mind?
And she says, it's kind of a private thing. I don't mean any rudeness. It's kind of a thing for me.
Yes. No, and it's a deep mourning that you do for your husband. Perhaps this is a difference in tradition, only you must have cared about him a great deal.
And she says, well, he was a good man. He provided well, and he was brave, and yes.
What else was he like?
And she says, what do you mean?
Like, do you have like some certain very fond memories of him, maybe?
And she says, well, things were complicated, she says. and she sort of moves her body a little bit unconsciously, almost as if... Actually, make Inga, make an insight check for me, please.
Yes, sir. 9.
Yeah, she shifts somehow. You're not really sure how. Just kind of moves around and then says, "It was complicated. He provided and he did the best he could, and that was sometimes in Stonyford. That's all you need."
River looks troubled and like she doesn't know how to broach this subject exactly. And oh, sorry.
No, you finish you first. I can wait.
No, I was just going to. She says, "It is difficult to speak of this because we have come for information in a weighty matter, and it feels like to seek this information we have to stomp around your grief like cattle, not knowing where we step. And I want to apologize to you in advance for any error we make or any further grief that we cause with our questions. But I ask you to recognize that they are important, especially if Odoric is to receive fair judgment and consideration for whatever he may have done.
And she nods and she says, "I understand. You can ask whatever questions you have. I'll answer them best as I may."
What happened that night? From you alone, not from what other people have said.
So she settles back on the bed and she kind of sighs and takes a deep breath and says, My brother Odoric came to me, said he was tired of the village and he intended to leave and seek his fortune in the wild. I couldn't blame him. You know, Odoric was a good man, you know, but he's just, the village has never accepted him because the people here, they just... Anyway, he said that no one else in the village trusted him, not even Dad, except me, and he asked me to come with him. He said that only I could be someone who could ground him and tell him what really mattered, you know, like family, and I didn't know what to say. I sat there for a moment and looked up at him, and he was looking down at me, and then Rathvik came home. Well, they never liked each other, Odoric and Rathvik. Odoric thought that Rathvik treated me badly, and Rathvik, we quarreled, but, well, anyway, they started at each other. They started yelling, and then Rathvik yelled something foul, and I won't repeat it here, something about me and Odoric. And then, well, they jumped at each other. They just grabbed each other, and I stood up. I tried to part him, and then Rathvik, well, he struck me in the face. And as she looks over, Inga, I mentioned that you could see these bruises on the arms, but you also see that she's been, at this point, kind of carefully keeping her head tilted almost, which maybe sort of contributed to this sense of icy reserve. But both of you can see as she tilts her head that on her right cheek there is a pretty significant welt that's still left over, fading now. But if this was something that has been there for a couple of weeks, I mean, then that must have been one hell of a hit, back when it first happened. And she says, well, he knocked me back here in the bed, knocked back on the bed over in the house, and Odoric attacked him. And one of them drew a knife, and they struggled, and then the knife was in Rathvik's chest, and there was blood everywhere, and I screamed. I couldn't help it. And then my father came. He came running, and there was Odoric standing there over Rathvik's body, and he hit him with the flat of his axe. He did, the flat of his blade, and knocked the dagger from his hand. And Odoric didn't even try to fight him. He just looked at him like he'd never been hit like that before, and then looked at me, and then he ran.
Inga sits down next to her on the bed.
Okay.
A quick out of character pause just to make sure that I've gotten these facts in the correct order. So the dagger is in his chest at one point, and then it's also in Odoric's hand, right?
That's the way the story was.
That's the way the story was. Okay, cool. And can I do any kind of perception check to see, like, trying to gauge truthiness?
You can make an insight check.
Insight check. Okay.
Yes.
No, wrong one.
I mean, I would ask to make one too, but Inga is not that smart to catch on to stuff like that.
Okay.
And as she is making that, we have lost Will for the duration.
Okay, did you just hear in Discord?
Yeah, he mentioned it in Discord, yeah.
Let me pop over there.
He doesn't want to keep readjusting the cameras. He'd rather wait until he's got a stable internet connection. So
He said he's going to move his PC to a new location, get his Ethernet sorted. We'll see. Okay, so that means maybe he'll figure out a way to get it fixed, but if not, then...
Okay.
That feel when you look up at Discord and there's like 5 messages waiting for you. You're like, just close that again. Never mind. Door shut. That's fine. There's nothing in my closet. Okay. 22.
Yeah.
So, and you said truthiness, but can you specify what exactly are you trying to determine seems off, if anything?
So River has a theory, but mostly what she's trying to listen for is, I guess just like, I mean, this is the first time they hear about what happened from someone who was there.
Yep.
And so she is basically listening to what's being said, remembering the fact that something was covered up in the other building,
Right.
and remembering to the look beneath what you hear thing. So she is basically just, I guess she's
suspecting that she might have killed him.
That is her suspicion, yeah. But specifically because I mean, she's also got, ever since, I mean, she hasn't, I mean, she's now observed. I'm trying to keep like the other lower insight checks in mind.
Right.
But since being at the well and having heard what Celia said, she wants to bear in mind that everyone seems convinced that Odoric has done this, but that Odoric, having volunteered himself for justice and stuff.
He's also like the easy victim, right?
Yeah, like especially if he wanted to leave anyway. Basically, she has a suspicion that Brunhilde had more to do with this than otherwise, but she's also very sympathetic. So she just wants to know what really happened.
Okay.
And I think does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
So she, there are things about this portion, things about this conversation, this description of the story seem odd to you. The knife in the chest and in the hand thing might be as simple a kind of disparity as she saw the knife in his chest while it was still being held. I mean, like he stabbed in the chest and then pulled it out. That might be perfectly reasonable. So that's perfectly possible. But it does sort of suggest something different, because if the knife was still in the chest, then obviously Helm-gut wouldn't have seen it when he actually came in the place.
Which I don't know yet.
You don't
Like,
know
which
that,
River
but you
doesn't
do
that
know.
yet.
No, you don't know that, but you do know that supposedly they have been stabbed and that they found Odoric was the only one who could have been responsible. Blah 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 blah
Yeah.
blah. The other thing that seems odd to you again is that as she's sort of describing this, the description is just she was clearly traumatized by the events that happened, whatever they were, but the way that she's describing it, there's not a whole lot of, oh my God, my husband was being killed. In fact, the most sympathetic figure in the story that she told was Odoric. And so you don't know what to make of that, but it certainly seems odd that there wouldn't be. I mean, maybe you wouldn't expect her to throw her foster brother under the bus, but you'd expect a little bit more of like, and then my husband was dead, and instead you got what you got. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Inge turns to Brunhilde and asks her, "What would you have answered Odoric if your husband wouldn't have shown up?"
Well, I'm sorry, say that again. What would you have asked Odoric?
What would you have
No,
answered?
What would you have answered to his question if your husband wouldn't have shown up?
Oh, she, and she looks up and she says, "I think there are some things that are better left to the past, don't you? And the dead?"
You wanted to leave him, didn't you?
And she kind of looks up and her expression grows fierce for a minute and she says, "Why? You think that I'm the kind of woman who would abandon her husband? Just like that?"
Well, like Inge points at her bruises. I mean, where did you get these?
And she sort of looks down and she says, "Well, there were quarrels sometimes. They always have. Sometimes they happen in this village. It's, well, the drink and she sort of trails off because she could see that you're just kind of, continuing to look at her. And she's kind of like, things weren't always perfect between Rathvik and me, but you know, and she looks up and she says, it wasn't like Odoric was perfect either, He fought with everyone. He did, and even if they started the fights with him, but still."
I would like to object to all the feels I'm having right now.
Well, you don't have to had to have been with either of them. You could have just left or found somebody else. I don't know.
And she says, "And do what? Not all of us are as brave as you. You can go off and fight monsters and go to different places, but, well, some of us try to just get by. And there's bravery sometimes just going day by day, and gathering flowers ain't..." And she sort of stops and says, There's things you can do and things you can't do in Stonyford, all right?"
River nods.
Well, all I know is that this is not bravery while I am on the road. I am on the road because I also lost my husband and I did not feel home where I was left. So what kept you here? If your husband was an asshole to you, then I mean, I would have left my husband if I had to, but this is just...
River looks quite stunned.
Yeah. Well, she's not the only one.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
Connie Bear, somehow sympathetic.
I was going to say, what?
Yeah, he felt a disturbance in the forest.
Exactly, like as if all of a sudden 1,000 feels had been done all at once. Yeah, but like no. So when you say this thing, Brunhilde sort of looks at you and her eyes widen and she says, "Well, it seems to me there's a lot of bravery in wandering away from home when you've lost everything that held you to it."
That was not bravery. I was running away from home because I couldn't stand being there.
And she nods and says, "Running away from home, well, that would have been nice sometimes." And she looks up and she says, "He came back, And for us, there's a break for a minute. So now that steely resolve, basically it started a little bit with the river, but when Inga made that confession, there's this sort of break in this ice that you sort of said, that you could say around her. And when she says that she came back, there's a raspy, a harshness, right, to it.
But did she or he came back?
He came back. Did I say she? Sorry, no, he came back.
Sorry.
He
When
came
did
back.
he come back?
And she says,
While this is happening, River, who's like they're focused on each other. River is just kind of both stunned and also quietly putting the honey cake on the plate and using her knife to kind of cut it into quarters and just like just needing to do something with her hands but not wanting to draw attention to herself as she's just like, okay, yes, go on.
That's it's well, I should point out, by the way, River, as you do this, you feel something bumping your leg, and you look down, you see Stone is kind of like, and then he kind of lays his head on your leg and looks up at you, but you don't get the, it's not this is not begging though. He just kind of looks at you with his eyes. He's done this before. It's kind of like he's checking in with you maybe.
She just kind of looks at him and scratches his behind his ear and pets him and bumps his nose with her nose a little bit.
Okay, so back to you, Inga. So she looks at you and she says, "If I tell you, you have to promise me that you won't hurt him. You'll listen to him when you come across him. He's not all bad, you know."
I look her straight in the eye and go, "I promise you."
She says, "Odoric was here again a couple nights ago. He came.
What did you want?"
He came in at night. He looked like the devil himself, he did. Just, I thought he was maybe an orc, the way he looked. His face was bloody and matted, and and she kind of shook her head, and then she says, he came to me and he said, Bruni, he always used to call me that, when we were little. He said, Bruni, I can't stay. He said, but he told me that Maravich and Odo had been killed by orcs, but that he managed to get away. He said his fate gave him a second chance. It had. It gave him a second chance, and that he was going to take advantage of it. He said he'd never come back to the land east of the river, never go back to the rest of the Bjornings, and that he was going west, across the Great River. And then he just kissed me on the head, on the top of the head, and said, take care of yourself, Bruni. And then he left. I don't expect I'll see him again. And she starts to cry at that point. Thank you very much for the sub, Cookie. What does it say?
3 months in a row.
It says, "Oh, I am awesome, and so are all the Arvanauts." Thank you, Cookie. Yes, 3 months in a row. Thanks, Cookie, so much. I appreciate it. Much love. I appreciate it. And yes, they all are awesome people. I agree. So that's what she says. She says it loud enough, by the way, River, that you can obviously hear it. But a lot of her focus seems to be on Inga since this discussion, since this revelation. So yeah.
Wow. Heading west. So River just kind of quietly approaches and offers up the plate of quartered honey cake without saying anything.
Inga kind of like, you know how when you are like really focused on something, suddenly somebody starts talking to you, like she doesn't like get a shock or something, but she's like, what's around? It's like, what? Right. She doesn't say anything, but she has a special
yeah. So she so she kind of munches a little bit at the cake, and she says, "Thank you. It reminds me of ones that, well, my father used to." And then she kind of, enough of him though. He made up his mind just like all the rest of them did.
You say that everyone has made up their mind. And it sounds like you have a low opinion of those who've made up their mind. And yet it sounds like you've said that what happened is more or less what everyone else says what happened.
And she says, there's one big difference. And it's that I know things are more complicated than people here think. They never accepted Odoric, ever. They always said he was just an outsider, a stranger. You don't trust people from the outside. And then you see what happened. But there were times when there was only one person who would stand up for... And she kind of stops again and says, anyway, there's more to a man than the thing you see on the surface. It's what lies beneath that matters, you know?
What? Right. Those are wise words. I feel like I've heard them before. Everyone seems to say that there was something odd about Oderic.
Probably because he wasn't them. Because he didn't want to spend his whole life in this 2-bit dirt village, sitting there at the foot of a great place. That tower is all these people think about. The great lords and lasses they all used to be, all their great-grandfathers and their great-grandsires. And look at us now, rooting in the mud and the dirt. There's nothing here for them, nothing here for us. And yet they sit here and act like they're so high and mighty. And here's a man who just tries to fit in with everyone else. What does he get for it? Nothing but abuse and pain. I thought my dad was different about that. But he turned out to be just like him. Just like the rest of them.
Have you spoken to your father recently?
No. As far as I'm concerned, there's no reason to speak to him ever again. He can rot for all I care, him and his axe and his warrior and his I'm stronger and I'm more powerful and I'm brave. And let me tell you tales, lass, of being an orc. None of it mattered. None of it meant that he could really be brave when he didn't have an axe in his hand. Or a skin of wine, maybe.
God.
So what are you expecting to happen? What are you expecting to happen now?
She says, well, I'll do what I'm supposed to. I'll bring flowers to Rathvik's grave every day, every evening, and I'll cry and wail. And then she says, and Inga, she looks right at you, and she kind of leans forward and kind of whispers and hisses to you, but they'll never know the person I'm really crying about. You hear me? Never.
You want to tend the grave for the rest of your days?
Not his.
Then don't.
And she kind of shakes her head and she says, but it gives me a chance for me to cry. And that way they don't ask questions why I'm crying and who I'm crying for.
So you'd rather live a lie than maybe go find Oderic.
She says, go find him? How? Cross the river? Go seek him out? Live a life in the forests and the streams? Look at me, I'm not suited for that life. I couldn't even manage my own home. And she kind of just, like, glances meaningfully at the bruises, basically.
Do you know that that's not your fault? Don't you?
And she says, so I don't want. I hate to build up even more of the feels, but I want to give two examples because I don't think I can do the expression quite the same amount of justice. And it's going to sound really odd. You guys have obviously seen Fellowship of the Ring film, so you know what Frodo looks like when he comes out of Moria. And there's this sequence. Now I'm going to tear up. There's this sequence where Aragorn says, you know, Frodo, and Frodo turns and he has this horrifically haunted look that is just Elijah Wood, it really does that role well. Anyway, the reaction that he has is very similar to this. The other example, and this is going to sound incredibly bizarre, is if anyone has ever seen the movie War Games, the original 80s War Games movie. If you guys haven't, I recommend it because it's actually really good. Tren will know what I mean. When they say to the professor, when they say it's Joshua, basically it's his son, He turns and faces to him. I tear up more about this because I have my own kids. Anyway, he turns and looks at them, and the expression that he gives is the exact same kind of thing. It's this haunted, hollow look, as if something was just kind of ripped out of you, in her response to your comment / query.
Brunhilde, I mean, we cannot tell you what to do, but I don't think you should stay here. I'm not saying you should leave today or tomorrow, but at some point you should pack your things and go somewhere else. You can be happy anywhere, because obviously you can't be happy here. But that's a decision you must make.
So she nods and she says, I've thought about it. Maybe I will someday. Especially, I mean, I won't see him again, but if I knew that Odoric was all right somewhere, even if he was somewhere in a prison or jail, at least if I knew that he was all right, that could help get me by, you know?
Okay, listen. How about we go find Odoric? We can bring him a message from you if you want, and maybe we can bring a message from him back, and then we come back here and tell you what happened. And then you can still make your decision on whether to leave or not.
And she puts her hand out and grasps your arm, Inga. There's a surprising strength in the grip. And she says, would you do that? Would you do that for me?
We were setting out to find him anyway. And
but you were bringing...
bring you a little bit of peace in this. And
you mean you won't...
We would be happy to.
You mean you won't kill him the minute you see him? I mean,
no,
not without talking to him first.
I promised you, and I keep my promises. We will listen to him.
Just tell him that it's worth looking beneath and telling people what you see there sometimes. Tell him the truth is okay. Just tell him that. And then she stands and she kind of turns and she says, I'm sorry, I'm most grateful to you, but please leave now. I think you've learned everything you can, but please, he's west of the river somewhere. Go west and find him and tell him that message and just judge him from the outside, not from inside this village, please. And she's still staring off at the fire.
Thank you, Brunhilde. And then Inga goes for the door.
River nods and goes to follow and calls Stone to her side. But she lingers at the door and looks back. And looks just... I mean, I'm trying to gather my own thoughts for this because I am in a moment of feels overwhelmed myself. She looks at her and she says, I want you to know that whatever happened that night, there is nothing that you could have done to justify that treatment that you received at your husband's hands. That nothing of that was your fault, and it was all his. And I want you to just know that that is something that comes from outside. As someone who is outside of this and looking at you and what you are doing and the flowers that you lay around the grave of the man who beat you, none of that was your fault. And you don't owe him anything. And then she turns to go.
She doesn't say anything, but as you turn, you catch, just as your last glimpse before you turn to leave, her hand goes down to cover over one of the bruises on her arm. And then you depart, And close the door behind you. I'm just going to take a moment, and we're going to shift back to Tawny Bear in just a second. I do want to give a moment just to remind chat that you guys are watching Adventures in Middle-earth Wilderland Adventures with this wonderful group of players. I'll talk about it.
I got into this game for killing orcs.
This is not what I was told. I was not.
Okay.
I did not want these feelings.
No.
I'll talk more about this at the end, but this is a wonderful group, so I'll just say that. But I'll get back into it. Anyway, if you guys like what you've seen here, please follow the channel because there is much more of this coming, although I promise not everything is going to be about just the feels. Sometimes you're in a kitchen pretending to be a goblin with a poisoned pot, so there are other moments that, you know, than that as well. All right, let's jump back. So Inga and River, you depart. Tawny Bear, you're still in there with Helm-gut. Robar has begun to brood again. He's again staring out the window meaningfully.
This is the worst part about it, is that we know that he had something else he wanted to do.
I know.
When we came back, and I don't know what it was.
I know. I may actually ask him that in the Discord chat. But anyway, go on.
So Tawny, before he stands up from the bed, because he's still sitting on the doubtless rather funky bed, but you know, he's endured worse. And so for those of us who have spent so much of our lives fighting, it becomes comfortable, like well-fitted armor. And we use it to shield ourselves, protect ourselves from what we fear may be a demonstration of weakness. The one piece of advice that I would give you from my travels, from my experiences, from my effectively my rebirth after the battle at Erebor, is that those closest to you can see you in your weakest moments, and they become your strength. I did not have such a family to draw upon, and it took me far too long to find my path towards a sort of peace. You have your daughter. I know that things are difficult and you fear that they will never be the same, and you are correct. They will not be. But that does not mean that they are forever broken. Have the courage to show vulnerability to those who can give you strength.
So he continues to stare, you know, at the floor, basically. But he sort of raises his head a little bit and he says, "Well, dropping my guard enough to show someone weakness ain't been my way, but I'll think on it. Thank you. Maybe I'll try going over talking to my daughter again. If she'll see me."
May not happen right away, but if it doesn't, and he kind of puts his hand on his shoulder and sort of leans back a little bit and says, "Consider using the time to bathe first."
And he looks up at you like, and you look like he's going to be like, he's sort of kind of like, eh? And then he's like, Oh, yeah. Yeah. Probably, yeah. There's the river there. Yeah. Kind of,
Yeah, not you.
Yeah, no, not that river. There's the river behind you. She's good
Don't use
with the
river
dog,
to
yeah. So then he nods. You depart? Or... Okay.
Did you get feedback from Will?
No, he's not even online. So I think he's.
Yeah.
Will said that this could be fixed by tomorrow, but I feel bad for Will. Poor Will, with all the various changes and stuff. So anyway, so he just nods broodingly in a sort of Liam Neeson Taken style, and then goes, nods and then departs. And you walk outside to find Inga and the river. Not that river, your river, sort of looking at each other. They seem quite somber themselves, actually. Well, I don't know. Is Inga joyful?
No, wait, somber, isn't that like calm?
No.
No.
Oh, okay. I'm
like
sorry. I must have
haunted.
misunderstood that.
Yeah,
Yeah, but like
yeah.
Inga has like her bottle in her hand, is just sipping and looking to the side, like she isn't even looking at Tawny.
Fair, but my point was,
No.
you're not like, woohoo, everything is
No,
good. Like, okay, yeah.
We had a
I
great
just
conversation.
misunderstood.
How was yours?
Great talk. How about you? Yeah. So,
No, I just misunderstood the word.
no, that's fine.
Because
So you
Inga-
I was
guys
gonna say morose, and I wasn't sure that was gonna help any.
Yeah.
So you guys see each
I
other
don't know that word either.
out there.
Yeah. River looks just quite miserable, honestly, like miserable and haunted. and like so so we like they have Inga and River basically just stepped out.
Yeah, like I don't know, 10, 15 seconds, 30 seconds maybe
Yeah.
before. So
Yeah. And River kind of like looks at Inga in a kind of I don't know, what does Inga look like right now? River basically looked to Inga in a need to like read Inga before.
Well, she looks like grumpy, right? As dwarves do, but she's like even like unusually grumpy, even for like dwarven standards.
With a bottle in her face.
With a bottle in her face, she's not wanting to look at anybody, and obviously looks like she would rather be anywhere else but here. But yeah, that's her right now.
So yeah, River basically like murmurs to Inga, could you promise me something? Could you promise me that no matter what happens in the next 10 seconds, that you won't try to kill me?
What?
Just promise.
No!
What? Promise.
What the hell? Why? Why would I make such a promise? What are you going to say or do? I don't know.
Well, she basically says, "Fine, I'll just take the risk," and she more or less, I don't know what the height difference is here, but she attempts to give Inga like a really tight hug.
As Tawny Bear is walking up, and you're like, oh.
Well, Inga like pretends like she doesn't like it, but she actually likes it. But
Get off of me. Yes, no.
It's going to last exactly 10 seconds, by the way.
Nice.
I was like,
and then
anyway.
a pat on the back. Yeah, sure.
The very clinical. Yes.
Like she tries to place it off as if the hug was for River, not for her, but like.
All right, like she was doing it. Like, oh no, yeah. Notice how I hugged her just then to make her feel good, better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
And also in regards to height difference, Inga is 5'1".
Okay. And River's like 5'10", 5'11". If she had to drop to her knees to do it, she would have just done it.
Right.
Okay.
It's like, but yeah, she just gives her a big hug.
Okay.
And then just kind of straightens up and takes a deep breath and says, "Well."
And that's when Tawny and Robar come around the.
Yep.
River basically puts on a face of like, haha, right? So, how did it go?
Tawny, however, is not really hiding his reaction to the meeting they just had. So he does look rather somber and mildly kind of, I don't quite know what to do about this kind of situation.
So, sorry, finish first.
No, go ahead.
While Tawny is standing there, Inge just like, while she was there, takes out the bottle. We know where he is.
Oh.
He came back here 2 days ago. Oh, what? No.
Somebody could be listening.
Oh.
I
No,
hear everything. No, I just said-
You said you see everything, crone.
I'm assuming.
And now to my secret master. It turns into a crow and like damn. Just like, no, I'm just joking.
No, I'm assuming we were in a closed whispery.
You're in a pretty quiet.
But
Yeah, but like,
that's
I
fine.
don't, like, Inge doesn't trust this place, right?
Alright, that's fine. That's
and
fair.
Stuff, you know?
That's fair. Anyways, maybe we should regroup. Let's go back to the scene of the crime and compare notes.
Mm.
Are you all right, Tawny?
Yes and no. But that's pretty much par for the course. Which is not a phrase that would be used in...
No.
Or do they have golf? No, they have golf.
In fact, they have golf created when Golfindel's head was cut off by a Took at the Battle of the
That's right.
Gladden Fields. What's up? And that happened in The Hobbit too. That was told about in The Hobbit. So
That's it, I'm leaving.
golf
Bye.
exists.
So, yes, then par for the course could theoretically
Success. Yes.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I so badly now want them to like just the party to start chilling at a golf. We'll make it a quest to go to one of the
go to a
great
golf course.
courses in Middle Earth.
be. Especially if it's mini golf, and then Inga's like, "What is that supposed to mean?"
Yeah.
You
Like,
know,
what are you trying to say? Huh? I have this image actually.
Timer's kind of like this club. It's like,
I have this image too of I like me chatting with some other GMs and then being like some lore masters or whatever, and then being like, oh, all right, so how'd your party do this? Like, what they do on their fellowship phase? I'm like, they built a golf course. They what?
Yeah.
It was like, it's a long story. They wanted to build a golf course, and so
We
they
built
did
it,
that,
and they came.
and like,
long story, short drive.
yeah, right. That's nice. Well done. I see what you did there.
I was just.
That was a
imagining-
fair way to do it. Hey, all right, that's enough. I'm gonna stop. I'll stop right now. So,
Okay.
okay.
You put that right.
So
next-
much for tonal shifts.
I know. Well, yeah. Okay. Anyway.
when-
we
I
needed
just-
some levity.
Yes.
Yeah, I just imagine Inga
Yes.
taking a swing with her axe and just cutting the ball in half.
Just be like,
That's
It
why I
just falls
just
off
did
the
that.
tee. Yeah, I know.
someone's like, that's quite a slice.
Oh.
Oh!
Got him. All right. Anyway.
I hate
This
Do,
is
do
this is
do your patrons like deduct their
For
pledge
bad jokes.
every time?
No. They
Like-
knew what they were getting into. At some
Oh,
point,
no.
dad puns come out, and that's fine.
That would be
No.
rough.
You need like a
Yeah,
a
see?
jar where you have to throw in a quarter or something like every time you make
Like a
really
swear
bad
jar, but it's a
pun.
pun jar. Oh man, that would be good stuff. No, they understand the value of a good pun. They get it. That's why they joined the club.
Oh no!
Go leave.
Look,
So,
we've been doing these puns to a T, but let's move on.
yeah, see, I keep trying to stop. And then, oh man, goodness, yeah. So, you had to just
Ow.
wedge one more in there, didn't you?
Oh my! Look, I can't react any more.
There's no more reaction. Exactly. I had to turn dramatic fairy tale into a lengthy golf joke in 5 minutes.
Oh.
Exactly. All right. So you guys now are standing there with a chance to talk about what you want to do next. And before we close up shop, I do want you to do that. To tell us where you want to head.
So, so we're gonna trust that we're in close quarters. Are we back at the?
You can be if you want to go back to the house,
Yeah.
the scene
Oh,
of the
yeah.
crime. Literally, you can do that.
By the way, did Tony take the bottle actually?
What bottle?
The
That was
bottle
proper
that Inge
to
was
empty.
handing
That was
over.
it.
Oh, was he handing? Wait, was she?
Yes.
handing-
Yeah,
Oh, I
that's
didn't-
why I was like holding it in front of the camera.
I completely didn't catch that. Sorry, I think that was right at the beginning.
Trying
of
to
the
do
golf.
proper role playing here.
Yeah, but golf.
Actually getting drunk in front of the camera, no.
He will take a very small sip.
Okay.
But
Does he have to make a constitution roll?
I was gonna say I don't think so. Have you seen
No.
Tawny Bears? I don't.
Yeah, but this is dwarven spirits. Like this isn't
But
just
this is-
ale. This
I
is
mean,
like
what's the percentage? Like, no, I don't think so. Not if he's taking a small sip.
This is like so much alcohol that it's like barely staying liquid. Probably.
I don't even know if that's what does that mean? Like,
it's 800 proof.
I don't drink, but I don't understand. I feel like we've entered a new world.
No, I
of-
mean like alcohol, like at some percentage just evaporates.
it's just
right?
about okay. So like as he's taking a sip, it's not even there. It's just like fumes.
No, it's like it's barely staying.
Right,
like,
right,
it's
I
barely
gotcha.
below that.
No, I mean it's got a kick to it, but with the smallest of sips that he described, I don't think that.
Like a thimbleful.
Yeah,
kind of.
I don't think he's going to be affected by that. This is not arsenic.
And
So River.
Mm.
No, she doesn't do that.
Yeah, man. So we're back in the same place. River says, Odoric was here 2 days ago. He came to assure Brunhilde that he was all right, that their party had been set upon by orcs, and that they had killed the orcs had killed Maravich. But that now he intended to use this second chance that he had to stay free and head west. And that's where he's going. And she gave us a message to give to him that sounded awfully familiar. And River would repeat it exactly as it was.
I
I've
got
already
to write down like the first line, and
Yeah, so it was
the
because
dialogue continued.
it wasn't quite look beneath what you hear, right? It was like a variation.
It's worth
on that.
looking beneath, and then so on and so forth.
It's
I
worth
can't
looking
write that
beneath, and then sometimes the truth is okay to state, or the truth is all right
Yeah.
to say.
Hmm.
I think the
Sometimes
exact wording was, sometimes it's all right to say the truth, I believe is what I
Sometimes
actually...
it's all right to say the truth.
Hmm.
I have a theory, but I don't know if it's my place. And this is a terrible situation where it's difficult to know what the right thing is to do and whose job it is to do it. What did Helm-gut say?
It took a bit of doing to calm him down. He was perhaps understandably angry. And very squarely in the descriptor of unpleasantly fragrant, but that is not...
Inga looks at him like very questionably because she has no idea what he means.
It's funny that they
He
were.
said dwarves have bad hygiene.
Ultimately, everything that he said is pretty much falls in line with what everything
What everybody else is saying.
But there's the portion of his account of what happened when he arrived at the home and finding Rathvik dead on the floor, Odoric standing over him with the dagger in hand. It all matches up with what we've heard thus far, but I just cannot shake the old man's advice to look a little deeper. It still resonates, I guess.
I'm just going to say it. I don't think Odoric killed him.
You think it was her?
Can you blame her?
No, I absolutely don't. And I don't want her to face justice for a situation that should have had justice facing it rather earlier, I think.
I'm glad we agree then, because I don't think anybody besides us should know. This should stay a secret.
I hate the thought of her staying here and performing penance for something that she should never have had to do. But at any rate... But at any rate, Odoric and Brunhilde seem to be protecting each other as best they can, with Odoric staying away and Brunhilde staying here, and both of them chaining themselves to each other over a distance like this.
Siblings would.
Well, I don't know anything about siblings since I have none, but
Nor do I.
we did make a promise to Brunhilde, and she when we find him, that we will listen to him before we pass our judgment.
It's not for us to judge him ultimately.
Exactly.
It's not. But what we promised her was that we would listen to him.
Yes.
It isn't our job to judge him any more than it's not our job to kill him any more than it's our job to judge him, especially. But at any rate, if he told Brunhilde that he didn't kill Maravich, and he told her this unprompted, it doesn't seem like something he would lie about when he was telling it as a secret in the first place. It sounds like Maravich's murderers have already been killed, and that I have no room in my heart to find a desire to avenge the murder of a man who beat his wife.
No, me neither. So I'm suggesting that we go find Odoric, speak to him, hear his version of the story, and if everything is as we suspect right now, then we should go find Bjorn, tell him and only him the truth, and hope that we can convince him to leave Odoric alone and to also not tell the truth about Brunhilde, so that they maybe both can find peace after this.
That said, there may be more here that we don't know. There may be more at work here than we're aware of even. There may, who knows, something keeps troubling me about the way that people talk about both Odoric and Rathvik. But at any rate, your plan seems a good one. I just don't know I don't know how far beneath to look ultimately.
He may just have been a crazy old man, but if there's anything to him, then I would assume that he does indeed mean that maybe it's that maybe he knew somehow that there was more to the story than everybody else believes in the village.
Yeah.
And that this might be it, probably. I mean, this is a small village. What else could have happened here, right?
Do you know what I'd quite like to do before we go? 'Cause I'd like to take a closer look at the watchtower.
Yeah,
Just-
that might be a smart idea.
People keep talking about it. And when Ava spoke of the battle that happened so long ago and the shadow that it's left on this place, it's just, I think that shadow's stayed on my heart as well. And not in a point-taking way, I shall add, but I just keep on thinking of, I want to understand this place better, I think. And I think looking at the watchtower might be something.
You know, once if everything does turn out as we believe it to be right now, then maybe we can arrange something for maybe Odoric and Brunhilde, or at least for Brunhilde, that she maybe can move out of this town and move north. Something, because nobody should have to stay in a place like this. Not under these circumstances, because this will haunt her all her life.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And presuming that Odoric listens to his sister's advice and does indeed tell the truth, what we suspect to be the truth anyway. And if Beorn responds the way that I suspect he will, because there is very little doubt in my mind that if anyone were to tell Beorn that there was a woman who was being mistreated by her husband and she killed him for it, that he would see very little fault in that.
Mm-hmm.
That we could then return here and honestly say that justice has been done.
That is true.
They can take it however they want.
I don't care about this backwater village, and after she says it, she like spits it on the ground.
River like just narrows her eyes at that and says, villages aren't born backwaters. Things happen to them. And as small and inward turning as a place like this is, I think that it would do us more credit to see this as something that can befall any place that we love. Any place that, given the correct circumstances, can become the worst of itself instead of the best of itself. And
yeah, but it's always the people's fault who live there, and if the people who live here, they have a responsibility to take care of each other, to
but what about
protect each
those...
other, and they clearly didn't do that.
But
Otherwise, all of this would have never happened. And it's just, I don't know. We can only hope that afterwards the people will have learned their lesson. But
that's what about the people around this area? What about, look, why did it become so isolated? It didn't used to be. I mean, we can look at we can look at a family, or we can look at the village, or we can look at the village and its surroundings, and you can keep on growing that space. And ultimately, it has to be about, we have to build more bridges between Stoneford and between the other places nearby. I mean, can you imagine that it would be as it is if more people came? If more people came and took tales from here to elsewhere, if it wasn't a place people avoided, but a place people visited, I don't know. It's only, I think judging it for the way that it's treating us or has treated other people here is to fall into the same trap as those who judge others for purely being outsiders. To judge people for purely being insiders, I think, is another shade of the same mistake.
Let me ask you this, Inga. If you came upon a stable where the horses, through no fault of their own, were not being tended well, And it was not so much an act of malice on the part of the stable master as he just didn't know what he was doing. And all you had to do was teach him a little bit to improve the lives of every horse there. And you chose to walk away and do nothing. Could you do that?
I guess not. Let's just go to the watchtower and then find Oderic. I don't care.
And with that, as much as I'm loving this, I'm going to bring this to a close because we have run over a little bit, but I wanted to, and I have another session I have to prep for in about 45 minutes, but I wanted to step it up and all.
Yeah.
So first of all, wonderful, wonderful session in every way today, guys. Really well done. Really beautiful role playing. I know, lots of feels. I know. It's a nicely written adventure also that makes some of that easy to do. So, but really wonderful stuff. Yeah, I agree, Fender. Really great session, guys. So you will see more of these wonderful people.
Wait, please let me just say, like,
Sure.
I've been sitting on this bit of backstory for 14 episodes, and only Arv knew about this, nobody else.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
So I'm so glad I was finally able
it
to
was just the right
drop
moment
that
to do
bomb.
it too. Everybody was just.
I've been saving that.
And of course, River's still the only one who knows about it.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. That's right.
And-
River's place to bring it
and
up.
dog.
Yeah. It was a great time to bring it up. That was really nicely done, Terry. Very well done. And as I
That
say,
was planned.
really great role playing from everybody. I was saying Fender in chat knows this adventure, and he was talking about how the adventure just springs to life when people play it. I mean, that's what I love about anything Dungeons and Dragons related, is how wonderful it is as a collaborative storytelling mechanism, but especially when you're doing something, in this case with Tolkien, who is one of our greatest storytellers, you put that universe, right, and that world, and you combine that with this storytelling capability. So yeah, it was just delightful. Super great. And then the golf jokes. Yeah, role playing feels and golf jokes. But that's actually true. I'll tell you right now, if you ever have gone, and I have sadly gone to several wakes, if there is nothing but just sadness piled upon sadness, you don't really have a wake anymore. You just have an experience of just despair, right? Instead, what you have is sadness followed by oftentimes a lot of laughter. And so there's as much of a celebration of stuff going on as anything else. You need to have moments. Anyone will tell you need to have moments of levity. Whether they involve that many golf puns, I don't know. But that was the way things worked. So I'm going to start with Amal. Wonderful job today, Amal. And you will see more of these people, I should say to everybody, by the way, next month in February. But in the meantime, where will the fine people see you next?
As me personally, I'm going to be at Confusion in near Detroit in Novi this weekend. So from Thursday to Sunday, and most specifically, there is a reading that I'm doing with Max Gladstone at 3:00 from our upcoming novella that we co-wrote, which is really cool. The week after that, I'm going to be in New York for a few days. And the Thursday, the 25th, I'm going to be part of a book launch for Brooke Bolander's novelette called The Only Harmless Great Thing. So I'm going to be in conversation with her and Maria Devana Headley at this place called Housing Works, the book cafe specifically. Anyway, it's going to be really cool.
Wait, did you say that's going to be here, right? Isn't that housing in New York City? Is that in Brooklyn?
I think it's Manhattan.
Or is it Manhattan Housing Works? When is this happening? Yeah. I'm sorry, I was literally doing three things at once when you were talking.
Oh, no worries.
I'm sorry.
It's the 25th. It's not this Thursday, but next Thursday.
Okay.
Can you come to it?
I'm gonna have to chat to you about it. Otherwise, I mean, I teach on Thursdays, but maybe afterwards. Anyway, we'll talk.
Yeah, that'd be super awesome. So we're going to be there for the weekend because it's also my husband's birthday that weekend. So nice. We're gonna have a bit of a thing, assuming again that we can get into the country at all. But that's fine. We'll cross cross that.
Yeah, we'll literally cross that border when you come to it.
Yeah. But besides that, a couple of things that if you follow me on Twitter, I am Tithenai, Tithenai. And you can also follow my website, amalelmuhtar.com. And just in the next few days, there are going to be some really cool announcement-y things happening. There's a poem of mine going up that's illustrated by Molly Crabapple. There's also going to be an unbelievably cool thing that I can't talk about until it happens, but that's going to happen on the 23rd. So anyway, things. But just, if you want to give me a follow there, that's really cool. And yeah, that's about it for me.
Cool stuff. Awesome. Thank you as always. And yeah, we'll talk, although probably not right after because I'm going to be busy prepping stuff,
I'll email you.
Awesome. That would be great.
Yeah.
Moving right up the line, Terry, again, wonderful work with Inga today. That was perfect time to do it. When you did it, I'm like, I knew something you didn't all know. It was really funny to see, but you dropped that out at the right time. So
that was actually like planned after last session, because like the moment you said something last time about the whole dead husband thing, I was like, oh, could this be my moment?
Yeah.
And like after the sessions, I talked to, like we chat among ourselves for a bit, and there I mentioned, okay, I'm not going to tell you what is going to happen, but whatever happens, make sure that it's Inge who talks to Brunhilde.
Yeah.
So, because I have a thing. I'm not going to tell you what the thing is, but
and actually the split actually worked really well, I think, because you have these two warriors who go to talk to this down on his luck warrior, right? And then the two of you who go also as people who have obviously fought, but as people who have direct connections either to the villagers or to having lost the husband. It was just, and it was really nice. So, I want to say,
she's not a warrior, right?
She's a wanderer. That's right.
No.
But I wasn't trying to make it
stonemason. She fights only to protect
to protect what is necessary. Right. But what I meant was not like I was trying not to be too like black and white about it, but I was just saying it worked really well in that connection. And I have to say again, like there's none of that in the text, right? Like I can't be like, oh, this backstory will come in at this point. That is just an organic part of what happens, which is again why I think this is the best game ever made. Anyway, I will shut up. Terry, great job tonight. When will people see and hear from you next?
Actually, I'm not sure, really. Like, let me think. I know I have one convention end of May, beginning of June. The Comic Salon in Erlangen, which is the best convention that exists. I won't hear anything else about it. It is the best convention ever. Well, but that's a gaming convention, right? The Comic Salon is obviously a comic convention.
Oh, so only comics. Okay, fair enough. I'll give you that. That's fair.
And like, if anybody happens to have time at the time and happens to be able to get to the absolutely beautiful town of Erlangen, which is like in South Germany, then it would mean so much to me if you guys could step by. I will be having, I'll be sitting at the Tunes Up table with my friends, and I will draw for you and stuff and want to chat with you, and yeah, that would be absolutely amazing. I know it's very unlikely because people are all over the world, but maybe. Oh yeah, other than that, I'll be in Amsterdam next month. If anybody is there, I'll be at a concert, and also the day after I will chill in the town until I'm going home, because it's not that far from my place actually. So if anybody's like, hey, I'm also there, want to grab a coffee or something, I'd be down for that. So yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Thank you, Terry. Always a pleasure, of course. Moving right up the line, I will, on poor Will's behalf, it's too bad because Will would have really enjoyed this as well if he could have been in the whole session, but his internet situation will be fixed as of tomorrow. Will runs Encounter Roleplay, which is literally one of the hardest working like runners of a channel on Twitch. Like the guy has done an incredible amount of really great work and has done a lot to build actually D&D in his own way. So I, especially on the Twitch community. So I'm a big fan of Will's. You should absolutely follow him. You should check out the stuff that he does and the other campaigns that he runs. Will is also usually a member of our Masters of the Dungeon show, although he will not be doing so this month because he needs a break. He will be back with us next month, but I will mention something about the Masters of the Dungeon show this Friday in a bit. But anyway, go check out Encounter RP because he is good. Also, the sexiest.
Forgot to mention, yeah.
Yes. He's also a D&D sex icon, but I still want to turn him into a tycoon of Dungeons and Dragons, which I think is going to fit
he
better.
He can be both.
But yeah, that's true. But perhaps he could. But anyway, he will be back with his internet with us very, very soon. Moving right up down the line. Again, wonderful work from you as well, Tren. Really good stuff with Tawny Bear. And where will the fine people see you next?
Hopefully on Thursday over on Not So Speedruns Twitch channel. Be seeing the next installment of Blades in the Dark, which where we left off was a big fight between my character, who used to be known as Hocus, who is now known as going by his true name, which is Useth, and his niece. Were getting into a big fight. She just pulled a knife and is going to kill him if he attempts to do what he's trying to do, which is to summon a demon prince to get them to stop all the ghosts that are. And yeah, it's going to be craziness. But aside from that, I am Trent Sparks. I'm a professional voice actor and personage, which Dino, whatever, are not whatever. I don't mean that to sound dismissive. I'm just not sure which is the correct pronunciation. And Echo Alpha yammering about it back and forth. The one thing that kept coming to mind in today's thing, and when I still lived in Texas, when I still lived in Denton, I always say that I used to hang out at the University of North Texas. I wasn't actually in attendance. I just hung out there a lot. Right near the University of North Texas is Texas Women's University. And I didn't spend as much time over there, but there was one point where I was asked to help build a set at their theater department. And they were doing a stage play for Extremities, which I saw the movie with Farrah Fawcett, and that kept coming back to me today. And I just, that movie, again, feels crazy feels back and forth, because I keep drifting between horror and rage and I just keep the scene. Never mind.
No.
It's just,
Oh.
it's a great movie. It is a very intense movie or play or whatever, book and everything. I encourage you to watch it. Just brace
What's the
your
name?
extremities.
Extremities. I'll try to remember that.
It is
Down
a
my
rough
handy
one.
dandy notebook.
And I'm a guy, so it's not that bad for me. So,
Yeah.
But I was really honored to help with I didn't stay and watch it because I didn't think I could handle it.
Mhm.
But I was happy to help them do what they needed to do to get it done. But yeah, Dino, gotcha. Okay, thank you. So yeah, Thursday on Not So Speedruns, and then back here on Saturday for D&D with that guy right there.
With Infinity and Beyond, which we had. I mean, like, there's been a lot of this lately. They had a really intense moment between Trent's character Fifely Harper and Ryuvi, the person they had just rescued, at a very different level, and it also actually involved violence. And there's like this history of violence thought that was going in my head about, like, anyway. But really, really wonderful stuff. I think for people who are watching this, it's not easy to maintain the balance between playing a game and having the whole thing dissolve into just everyone has a good time and doing something serious but not have it utterly brought down. Like the feels, and that's why I said, I think Anydel said so many feels, and I pointed out in chat that they're good ones, although sad, right? And that these things are important, because I really do think that stories are transformative. I think Amal and I both believe with this, otherwise we wouldn't do what we do. Stories are transformative, and I think that everyone who works in this field and in a creative field, and that's where both Terry and Tren come into play, will agree that the way that you do that is by conveying something that has an honest truth to it through whatever medium you use. It's about truth. It's about the truth of how you feel, whether it's in art, whether it's in acting, whether it is in writing, whether it's in music, any of these things, it's about truth. So, you can't push that. You just have to set up the situation as it is. But I do want to give a shout out to the official sponsor of this campaign, Cubicle 7, because I think they've done a wonderful, wonderful job in the writing of this adventure, Wilderland Adventures, but also just in the feel of this world. And obviously Tolkien gets credit for the first part of that. So I want to give them a shout out, but also a shout out to my players, because again, they handle that balance very well. Also, good credit to you guys in chat, because you also did stuff very well. And it is an honor to be able to DM sessions like this. So thank you to my players, thank you to chat, and I'm going to close up shop to my players, but I will say thank you so much. I'm looking forward to next month already, and wonderful job to Tren, to Will, to Terry, and to Amal. Thank you guys so much.
All right.
Bye.
No,
Thank you
that
guys
way.
so much.
Upside down.
Okay. So that is going to do it for today, and I am now pushed myself way beyond where I normally should because I have got to get over and start getting ready for the next D&D session, which has also been a blast and a lot of fun. And that, of course, is going to be over at GOG.com's Twitch channel with my Pen and Pixel show, where you will get a chance to see the wonderful Pyron Jade, Screaming Joypad, and Darksaber 2K as they continue their adventure. That'll be at the top of the hour. I wanted to be able to do today. Also, I'm wearing my Carpe Diem Seize the Dungeon Master shirt, so I'm gonna put credit with that. Plus, my son made an appearance, so you put all those things together. Anyway, I'm going to do the best I can to get over there and do that. I was going to have us do nominations for the Chat Chosen Game of the Month today. I don't have time. I got to get over and start getting ready for that, but I will do that instead on Friday after the show that is happening on Friday. On Friday, we have Masters of the Dungeon, which is my show about basically game mastering, and I do it with a bunch of experienced dungeon masters. The regular people, in addition to myself, are Dave from the Digital DM, Askren from Exploding Dice, and Will from Encounter Roleplay. Will is not going to be able to be there this time. He'll be back next month for reasons I already described, but I am happy to say that in addition to Dave and Askren, who will be there, we have a special guest who is Louise Moore, also known as Accidental Legend. She is a wonderful role player. She did stuff with Trendane on Blades in the Dark. She also DM'd stuff, and she's really good. And so she's going to be on chatting with us about topics of the day relating to Game Masters. So definitely, yeah, isn't this an awesome shirt? I love this shirt, Veldranth. But anyway, definitely make sure to check that out. That'll be Friday starting at 9 p.m. Eastern. And again, if you follow my channel and if you support the channel in other ways, that will be made clear to you as well. Again, reminders about ways to support the channel. Please follow the stream. Please check out the Steam group with ! Steam group, YouTube with ! ArvTube. Please make sure to check out the Discord with ! Discord. Please also support the channel if you can by checking out the shop. You can get Infinity and Beyond awesome shirts. That's ! Arv shop. You can also check out the Patreon, ! Arvtreon, sitting at 400, which a number of wonderful people have already supported, and you can get inspirations to help the players. And last but certainly not least, that sub button. We're almost up to 40 subs. Would love to be able to get to that too by the end of the month, because it would just be a cool little milestone as we continue to build the channel's profile. For only $4.99 a month, you can get to use that awesome Arvany hype. And if $9.99 a month, you'll be able to inspire the players like you can if you support the Patreon at $10 a month as well. So all of those things are available to you if you can support things. That's going to do it for me. Love you all. You're the best viewers on Twitch. No raid today because we're going to go over at 4 o'clock, I hope, in about a half hour to GOG, where we're going to continue with Storm King's Thunder. This campaign, however, will continue next month. And again, many thanks to Cubicle 7 for their official sponsorship because it was awesome. Thank you guys all so much. Much love to everybody. What did I do it right? Yes, I got it right. First time. Thank you guys all so much. Much love. And I will see you guys hopefully over at GOG at top of the hour. Until then, everyone be good to each other. Have a good day.